All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Happy Wednesday. We're coming at you just a little bit early this week. We've got a pretty big holiday coming up, so we will be getting out of your way before the festivities truly kick in, but it is Wednesday. We are slightly less than a week removed from probably the game of the year, not just for this team, but for the entire league. And things ended in our favor. So we're definitely excited about that. There's plenty to talk about. We will, of course, be turning it over to this upcoming Carolina game as well. But first, I got to ask, Brandon, how are you doing today?
It's a sigh of relief, my friend. You know, we've gotten through this year waiting for these kind of win to come along and this team to kind of finally get past that line. They're right up onto it seemingly the whole year. And it felt like they finally pushed past. And the hope, I think, would just be that you broke through here a little bit. But can't ask for a better season than this and what we've got to experience. Can't ask for a better game than when we got to watch last Thursday night. And that just has me in football heaven.
Mm-hmm. It was. It took a while to get going. You had to prime the pump a little bit, but it ended up being not just a phenomenal game, a very special game, but it also ended up playing out in our favor. And there were definitely moments during that game where I, watching the game, kind of counted them out, kind of was like, okay, Panthers game it is, I guess. There were definitely moments where I was like, well, I guess we're not on that level yet. I guess we can't quite break through. I guess this is not going to be the year where this team breaks through. And somehow, some way, there they are at the very end there. And they needed every last second possible. They needed every last play possible, but they found a way. 38-37 in overtime. You're not going to get a much better game than that. Echoes of maybe even that Chiefs-Rams regular season game back in 2018 that people still recall so fondly, that ended up nearly being a Super Bowl preview. Obviously, this game cannot be, but I think there is a sense there will be a rematch, and a lot of people are very excited about that. So, obviously, the game was almost a week ago, so we've all had way too much time to digest and talk about it. But what are your big takeaways from what you saw last week?
Um, I think that the Rams remain a very scary team, and that this isn't somehow you've taken down that you've somehow solved them. I think you've gotten the big win and you broke it through in a way that you haven't in years prior, and that's notable. But as far as that you've got their number or you've solved them, I don't think that's the case at all. I think they came out with a tremendous game plan last time we played them the first time. They didn't stay as much with the run. They came out with that commitment to the run and hammering our light box throughout the course of the game over and over again. And we didn't do as good a job as we did down in the second half and stop the run. We weren't bad about it, but we were allowing those consistent yards. We were allowing them to get into places where it was going to be third and makeable so very often. And you saw some adjustments made. You saw dialing back of the blitz. They dialed up the blitz early on, which was kind of surprising in how they were looking to go after Matt there in the first half. So the coaching staff made some tangible adjustments on the defensive side of the ball, especially. I know the last touchdown to Puka kind of wipes us off the board in overtime, but three and outs into the fourth quarter. You did find a little bit of footing there. It's going to be a struggle against this defense, but like you say, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up facing them down the line once again, no matter what, because they're just that good a team, and we might be just that good a team and where we face them.
Yeah, I think it's important to notice that Puka, that touchdown, the 80-yard touchdown drive the Rams had in OT, that was after you lose Kobe Bryant, you lose Reek Woolen, you lose Nick Eman-Ward. There's only so much a defense can take before they crack. And honestly, those injuries happened earlier in the fourth, and they did a great job holding up the little bit that they did. Like forcing 0 points in the fourth quarter was kind of amazing without 3 starters in the secondary. Like, legitimately, I know that they still had Witherspoon, and he's their most important secondary guy, but they were down to the very bottom of their depth chart for that overtime drive. So I'm not even mad on that.
I'm not either. And I think that Mike Macdonald talked about the fact that why they had so many issues throughout this game at times in the secondary beyond the injuries. It sounded like they kind of loaded up the plate a little bit too heavy. Like the people will be loading up the plate this Christmas, that they gave these guys a little too much for a short week, and that they weren't really able to kind of get that all of the fine-tuned details down on that timeline, and that they probably should have simplified things down a little bit more. So I think waiting to get Witherspoon one-on-one on Puka in this game was kind of silly. And how many catches from Puka in this game were him just running in the holes of your zone? And that it wasn't that he's necessarily is the one catch on Job where it's contested, but he's just kind of running wide and free. So I take that as also encouraging, because it's something that I think the coaching staff will correct and not have to run into at any other point in time this season, being that short week and having to try to get a game plan installed against a very tough opponent, against a very good offense at the same time.
Yeah, that was one thing that I really kind of latched onto over the last week. The blitz rate in the first 3 quarters, according to Next Gen Stats, we blitzed at a rate of about 39%, which would be the second highest of any team in the league, which is to me kind of a disaster. Like I don't know how that's the game plan when you're playing this Rams team. You have a veteran quarterback who is very good in Stafford. That's not really a guy you want to blitz. And I think one thing we've learned this year is that the Rams want to get blitzed. That's why they like their 3 tight end set so much. We've talked at length about how there's this like trigger in defensive coordinators' minds where they see a 3 tight end set and they want to blitz it. And I think the Rams have kind of depended on that all year. That's why they've been so good out of those 3 tight end sets. So I was very confused those first 3 quarters. I was shocked that was the game plan, to seemingly give the Rams exactly what they want. Again, 39%. And then in the fourth quarter and overtime, I think it was about 17% blitz. And we got pressure at a much higher rate despite that. And of course, the defense was significantly more successful, even though they were losing several key starters. So yeah, just to me, kind of a really bizarre game plan. I didn't like it. I didn't get it. And I'm hoping for that we learn if we end up having to play this team again, because I feel like next time you try to blitz them a lot, they're just going to punish you again.
I think that's a fair outlook on it. I also don't think you blitzed them anywhere near that 40% rate in the first matchup when the defense held them down really well. So it was a little odd to me too. You want to blitz these vet quarterbacks. They see it from a mile away. There's just too many tiny tells a defense will show those guys that they're too sensitive to. It's very hard to surprise them.
Right. Exactly. You don't think you're going to surprise them. Just try to beat them straight up. I think you have the talent to do it, especially in a game like that where the Rams have no Devontae Adams. They have no Rob Havenstein, no Tyler Higbee, and very early they also had no Kevin Dotson. So that was not even a fully manned Rams offense. And for them to get almost 600 yards, I am a little bit confused as to how that was the game plan, because I do think that game plan of blitzing at a league high rate was a big part of why things went so badly. So hopefully they learn. That's really all I can say, because to me, that was a very bizarre decision.
Agreed. I don't have a great explanation for it. And there are times, we saw this in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer game. It's not happened a lot, but there is times with this Mike Macdonald zone coverage where sometimes these guys are not actually, they're falling to a spot, they're falling to a space, but they're not actually going to a zone to pick up a guy. And then you have guys just kind of standing there flat-footed as the guy just runs past them into the hole of the open zone, and nobody's really pulling or picking up anything. And especially in this case where it's a Puka, if you come back to play the Rams again and they don't have a Devontae and it's just a Puka, you've got to put a game plan together to try to draw some doubles his way, or at the very least just have Devin Witherspoon follow him all game. I mean, it can't be the same game plan in any way, just dropping into zone and hoping you're going to tighten it through with him on that, because he exploited the hell out of it all game long.
Right. It was a definitely frustrating game on that side of it. Offensively, things are, I think, a little bit more complex. There was some stuff on the offense that was great. There was some stuff on it that was really frustrating. I do want to ask, because you've been kind of a little bit, not excessively, but a little bit down on Clint Kubiak in recent weeks. And there was definitely some mixed reception to the way he called the game on Thursday last week. How did you feel about Kubiak in that game? Because there was definitely a lot of comments going one way and then comments going the other way.
Yeah, I mean the opening drive is it's kind of a thing I'm developing with this team in general as I'm kind of thinking about this year wrapping up, and that is that there is a bit of a feast or famine factor to this team in general at times. Feast in that when it's hot, they are eating everything on the table, and it's both offense and defense, and it's crazy. And when it's famine, my God, 600 yards of offense, and you can go from that first drive where you go right down the field, and that's exactly what I would want to see from Kubiak coming out in the first drive of a game, being that you give first Darnold an easy pass in space on a rollout to his left and a naked boot. You come back to a screen play on Kenneth Walker that'll get you right up the field. You run the ball down in by the red zone to pop it in there with Zach Charbonnet, and you're like, we're on our way, man. This is the game plan we want to roll with. And then the next couple of drives, yeah, it gets a little bit weird to me. I think that there's been at times a little bit of a struggle with finding a way to diversify the offense and find that perfect mixture between a JSN and the rest of the guys. First half, you get like one target to JSN and you're trying to kind of get a couple of the other guys going and then finally get back to JSN, but it's kind of all back to JSN in the second half a little bit. The running attack with Walker and Charbonnet, I was in complete for balancing the load between these guys throughout most of this year and letting that roll. And even when there's a game where one guy may be hotter than the other, that you're still maintaining that balance. I think we're down the home stretch of the season, Brendan. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but I think the time has come thoroughly now with what we have data-wise of this year, with both these guys running behind the same offensive line, same scheme, and especially because it's been a couple years now of this, in that Walker is the better back. And right now, we need this rushing attack to take us as far as we possibly can get this year. And going out there and having a 9-carry, 32-yard day for your second back, who's going to get almost as much touches as Walker is, I could really see you going to the playoffs with this firm commitment to doing this, and you sort of take, 5 to 9 touches off the back of Walker and what he should have had as far as extra, and we saw his impact and what you can give him as far as his big playability. And I wish this offense was more consistent about just churning out the first downs, but this is that feast factor I'm talking about as well, feast or famine. And we got to kind of embrace that this is the personality of our rushing attack. We don't have a 3 yards in a cloud of dust rushing attack. I wish we did. That's the way this offense is supposed to roll. But guess what? We're into week 16, and it still is boom or bust. In this game, you've got Walker with 11 carries, 100 yards, and he ran well, but 2 of those carries were the third down and forever they busted through. The other one was the 55-yarder. Then you've got Rashid Shaheed with 1 carry for 31 yards. Isn't this, Brendan, a lot what we've seen in the rushing attack throughout the course of this year, where even when it is effective, it's effective on the back of like 3 or 4 runs throughout the course of the game, and you got a lot of negative yards, you got a lot of like 1-yard gains there, kind of fitted to the other side.
Absolutely. And this is what they are. Like, they've had enough time to establish if they were going to be like one of these consistent rushing attacks that would grind out five yards a carry, we would have found out by now. So it is something we're just going to have to deal with. And I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of like what we saw with Boye Mafe on Thursday, I think, because he basically got benched. They basically just took him out of the game. And the reason why they did, I think, is because he wasn't playing well. And there are some games where they might be willing to live with that, but that game was too important. So even though it was a game where we had 92 snaps on defense, 92, he played 24, which is in my mind, basically getting benched. And they just went, we're going to win this game with Nwosu and Lawrence and some Hall as well. And I think that's what you have to do when the games get really, really important. Things are a little higher stake now. You can't give snaps to players that are clearly inferior to your best players. In part, the reason why you balance yourself out during the meat of the regular season is so that when you get to the end and the games really, really count, you are liberated to just say, okay, we're going to give pretty much every snap to this guy because he's our best guys. And now's the time, right? We're playing, we played the Rams on Thursday. We're playing maybe a playoff team this weekend, and we're playing a playoff team the next week, and then we're in the playoffs.
That's it. And I mean, you've reached the season where Walker's got almost a yard more average per carry than what Charbonnet has. That's not a little difference. I know the Charbonnet eats up some of this because of the goal line sets. That's going to artificially reduce down some of his yard per carry a little bit, but I don't think you can blame it wholly on that. I watch these games and there's one back that's more dynamic. There's one back that's more capable of being able to break these big runs. And just backing into the point, it's not the ideal for this offense. It's not where we'd like to be. We'd like to have the 3 yards in a cloud of dust minimum on every run and maybe less of the breakout runs if we could have that as far as the trade-off. But that's not the trade-off on the table here. It's the personality and the beast of what this team has been, and it's gone back since basically the first game of the season when it comes to this rushing attack in this fashion. I think you just got to kind of embrace it. And a big part of embracing it too, Brendan, is that teams have committed. And you saw in this game the stark difference between the way the Rams went out there and dealt with the 12 personnel and the way that we dealt with the 13 personnel. So Rams came out there, as a lot of teams do against our 12 personnel, with base, 3-4 look, 2 linebackers, and then even a safety coming down right next to the linebackers, sort of serving as a de facto third linebacker. We, on the other side, of course, Brendan, went to the 4-man fronts with the 2 linebackers. Sometimes we're bringing the safety up, but even then it's 7 against their 13 personnel, where they're bringing down the 8 against our 12 personnel. So some of the lack of running ability here comes also from the fact of these teams and their firm commitment to stacking the box. The blitz rate still has remained fairly high, but it's really that stacking of the box, which is really, I think, preventing as much of the consistent runs. You're still getting the big runs because you can have a stacked box and one guy overruns his gap, and despite you having those extra bodies down there, kind of like the Walker run there, where they were kind of prepared for it, but just kind of the middle linebacker, foobarred the whole play a little bit as far as just kind of lost his way in the mode of traffic. And you can still get those big plays off of the stacked boxes, but you're probably not going to get as much of the consistent, like churn it out kind of yards.
Yes, and I was hoping the addition of Shaheed would open up the consistent 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, but we've had him for about a month and a half now. It's not really happening. And there also seems to be hesitancy to give him the full-time number 2 receiver job. Cooper Kupp is still playing way more snaps. I think they want to maybe preserve Shaheed for the special team stuff, which he's really, really great at. So I get it, but it's not having as big of an impact as I was hoping, even though I do think it made things better.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it's the acclimation into the offense thing too there, where you're just still getting them slowly on board with everything, and it's hard to kind of fast forward that. So it's a process. Maybe by playoff time, this stuff starts to go up more and more, and the snap counts do increase, but it is what you're kind of rolling with right now.
Right. And so how'd you feel about Darnold in that game? Because that was another one where everybody had something to say and something to think this last week, because that was a very a roller coaster of a game. It obviously ended in a very, very good place. But where do you sit with Sam Darnold right now? Are you still riding on the Sam wagon?
So I guess let's break it down first. It's going to be a little bit of an in-depth response to you, Brendan. But let's go down first from a spot where I want us to make sure we're on the same page here. Sam Darnold has had a top 8 season for a quarterback in the NFL this year. Is that pretty acknowledged?
I think that he's a Pro Bowler. I'll say that. So I think he's top 3 in the conference at the very least. I wrote an article for On SI talking about that a little bit, or partially. And I mean, we have a top 5 scoring offense, and we have the 8th best dropback EPA in football. That doesn't happen without having high level quarterback play. It just doesn't. You can't have the 8th best dropback EPA in the league with a bad running game and mediocre receivers unless your quarterback is doing something very, very right. So yes.
So it's the thinking on this has always been, this is one of the great debates I have over on the roundtable all the time, which is that everybody gets hyper fixated on having the star quarterback that's the 1 or 2 or 3, 4 best quarterbacks in the sport, and thinking that's the mandate, that's the necessity to go win a Super Bowl. My point on this has always been that a top 10 quarterback can do it. We did so 10 years ago. The Eagles did so last year with a guy that may even be not even a top 10 quite quarterback when it's all said and done, really, when we look at it. And so that's been proven the case. And Sam has been that. And in this kind of game, I think you're going to get a little bit of that of what you'll get from the top 10. You're not going to get the Matt Stafford superfluous 457 yards kind of game that you'll get from one of the top 2, 3, 4 guys. But can he go out there and make those throws? Can he execute the offense? Can he also bring you from behind there to go and get the win in overtime without any room for error? And I think when it comes to Matt, that day looks a lot different not Matt, but for Sam. That day looks a lot different, Brendan, if Cooper Kupp doesn't fumble at the end of the half, doesn't it? Look, think about this. You have only 4 total drives in that first half alone. Only 4, because the Rams are living with the ball. They're basically owning the ball that whole half. Right. You score a touchdown on the first drive. You don't do anything on the next 2 drives. Sam executes that offense and has them moving down the field on what he hit him, like a 15-yard play there to Cooper Kupp when Cooper Kupp fumbled that ball. You go and even get a field goal. Now you have a touchdown, 2 where you punt, field goal, and then a touchdown coming out of half, right? So that starts to make the start of Sam Day. Now the interceptions come after that. I'm not trying to cover those up, and we can talk about those, but that day starts to look a lot different for Sam, right? And it's kind of like the Cooper Kupp play ain't his fault. He's executing offense. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And the fumbleitis problem's been a problem throughout a lot of this offense throughout this year, quite frankly. So I think that the interceptions, the one where he throws, I mean, that's tough. That's one where you go, man, a pick six again here. And if it had just been those two interceptions, certainly we're going to have probably a little bit of a different conversation when it comes to Sam. But it is the day as a whole. And it is the way that day started. It's the two interceptions. And then it's also how he finished up. And the fact that now we have a guy that everybody tells us goes in the show when times get tough or when things are really hard. And it's not just set up easily for him, as people tried to say last year coming out of Minnesota, that he's a guy that's going to fail for you. When you need him to step up big, he's going to fail for you. Well, that wasn't the case. And it hasn't been the case throughout this year. And you and I have talked about this a lot, be it the San Francisco game where he had you driving down in that game and then Abraham Lucas gets beat on a block and he can't see it because his head's turned the other way and it's a fumble. Not his fault. He's driving up the field. Tampa Bay Buccaneers driving up the field. Ball goes off a helmet. It's kind of random. Stuff like that's going to happen. Didn't mean that he wasn't putting you in a position to go do so. The Cardinals game and a variety of others. He's proven this over and over, and this is really the exclamation point on a season where he's had a couple of these games already to kind of upend that narrative, Brendan. But I think it's been upended. It's not that he's perfect. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's not to say that, he's the greatest ever, but it's to say that a guy that's playing at this level, that's allowing this offense to execute, you bring up the lack of running game. That's the part that nobody seems to put on here with Sam Darnold in this rushing attack. As I said, boom or bust. So very often you're getting yourself into 3rd 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 because your commitment to run the ball and your suckiness with running the ball in early downs, putting your quarterback in a predicament on these 3rd and downs and 3rd and longs to have to really execute at a high level in order to keep the chains moving. That's a lot to ask. And yet despite that, he's able to go out there and still execute every single week. So I've been completely impressed by Sam. It's not ever going to be perfect. I'm not going to get overloaded on the interceptions as the day as a whole you can put together was that. And it's against a great defense. Let's not undersell that part of it as well.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable summation. Like, it was frustrating in that game. I will admit there were definitely moments where I was like, can he do something? Can he do something for us? Because really those first almost 3 quarters, he had made like 2 decent throws. And yeah, it was a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, it's like the Cooper Kupp fumble looms huge, right? That's a guaranteed field goal. If that doesn't happen, probably a touchdown. And we're feeling completely different about everything at that point. Like everything about that game changes if we get that touchdown. Even a field goal, I think, changes things pretty radically. And I am a big believer in the idea that quarterbacks make their money at the end of close games. Can you drive down the field with 2 minutes left when you're down 3 to tie the game? Can you drive down the field when you're down 4 with 2 minutes left to go win the game? Can you get to those situations and perform? And I think you will find that maybe the greatest correlation between teams that win a lot and quarterbacks having tremendous success late in the game, that's going to be stronger than anything else. And I do believe there is like a legitimate skill there. It's not just random luck, because what happens at the end of close games? You can't really run the ball. Play action doesn't work as well. The other team kind of knows you're going to throw the ball, because what else are you going to do? You have to drive down and score. So you're kind of stripping away a lot of the things that protect a quarterback and make life easy for him. And you're just kind of reducing it down to the offense versus the defense, right? So right. It's just the quarterback and his knowledge and his arm and his understanding of how to run that offense. That you're stripping all these things away that would normally protect the quarterback and make his life easy. Like earlier in the game, there are plays where a quarterback just has a really easy, almost like a RPO type play where he just sticks the ball out, pulls it back, and then hits a wide open guy right over the middle. You're not going to see that stuff as much in a 2-minute drill. Like my favorite example of all time, final year of Peyton Manning's career, he was the worst quarterback in the league, but he was nails in the fourth quarter and overtime. He was nails. Every time they needed a drive from him, he came through. It was kind of spooky because he'd spend the whole game doing nothing. But then at the end, he'd go down and win the game every time. And the Broncos won the Super Bowl. So that's where the money gets made. And more so than any other game this year. And there have been a couple other games where he's kind of come through. But that was the absolute pinnacle of being clutch, because we needed it all. There was no kicking a field goal on that drive. There was no, we can just get the ball again in a couple minutes. That was the end. And he came through. So I'm going to overlook a lot of the stuff that happens early in the game if you're coming through at the end of a close game like that, because with the way this defense and special teams unit is, even in a game where we don't play well and we're behind at the end, it's probably going to be close. And if you can come through in those big end of game situations, we're probably going to win.
Agreed. And that's the part of having a good complete team, is that you can not have everybody have to play perfect to get your wins. This is that room for error I've pointed to that you have in this team. So as well, that last drive, even when you did have the time and overtime to go up the field, very little of that drive was you running the ball. It was basically all on the back of Sam Darnold's arm on that, and having to make some incredible throws like what he did to Cooper Kupp there on the sideline, where how many times this year you talk about toughness, and the part that doesn't get talked about with Sam and the willingness to take the big hit. And again, why the ghost thing is such a silly thing to continue to be mentioning at this point, because I've seen at least a dozen times this guy stand in tall in the pocket, get hit right in his effing chops, and deliver the ball to the right space. And sometimes in that case, almost a perfect pass, as that was not a one where it's an easy throw. You've got a high-low coverage situation there between Cooper Kupp, squeezing him like a sandwich on that play. And you've got to fit that ball in while you've got a guy bearing down to hit you, smack you right in the face. And he's done it time and time again. And it's why I've been so impressed by him.
Right. So I already know that unless the Seahawks win or let's say make the Super Bowl, it's going to be a bumpy offseason for us, right? We're going to be talking about the quarterback position way more than we probably should be, but I can't stop it at this point. And I get it. I understand he leads the league in turnovers. I can understand on some level why some people are frustrated, but this is a good quarterback. And at the end of the day, like I said, you come through at the end of a close game, I'm going to forget about the stuff that happened earlier in the game. And as a Seahawks fan, so should you. He got us to the finish line, period.
Agreed. And I think interceptions, turnovers don't just happen in a vacuum. There's context for it. It's not just the quarterback did bad. There's a turnover there. There can be a lot of things that are built up into it. And there's two things I can go to when it comes to his turnovers that we can point to that is probably a commonality, being that lack of consistent rushing attack. So you become one-dimensional. And then at times, the pass protection as a whole has been good, and they've mitigated a lot of the issues that are there with the pass protection with the quick passing attack. But there's also been those moments of halves and a few quarters in there where there's a pretty good amount of inundation of pressure on him on top of it. So it's not just been perfect across the board in the offense and he's making these turnovers happen. It's that there's some disjointedness, there's some ineffectiveness. The Clint Kubiak stuff that I've pointed to that's popped up at times with the play calling that makes you scratch your head and go, I don't know what you're doing here, man. It's again back to that feast or famine factor, and the feast is great, but the famine sucks. And the famine is a contributing factor to Sam's play on this at times. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have to be better with the ball and be more careful with the ball and need to do it. But I think that he's done that. That's why I'm not as much hammered in on this. Okay, 2 interceptions today, right? But if I'm not mistaken, he's got 3 total interceptions since that last Rams game. He's made an adjustment in his game. He's using his legs more. He's taking the security outlet option more. And so overall, I think he has made that adjustment to his game to try to correct that stuff. And so it's stuff I'm not going to get as caught up within, but I get people's worry.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like I've said before, I've said it many times, I'll say it one more time. Turnovers are not the end all be all of what makes a quarterback good or bad. Not even close, actually. Frequently, many of the highest turnover quarterbacks in the league are also the best. I looked at the list of top 10 most turnovers per quarter for quarterbacks in 2023, and it was like the top 10 had Mahomes, it had Josh Allen, it had Tua, it had Jalen Hurts, and it also had some bad quarterbacks too. Like, God, I can't remember who was it. I think that was like the Kirk Cousins year where he had all the turnovers. But the point is, like, there's not correlation there. It's just some of the guys are still really, really good and some of the guys aren't good. But turnovers are not there's not a ton of correlation is what I'm trying to get to there.
Well, to your point, Stafford had 19 interceptions, I believe it was the year that they won the Super Bowl.
He led the league.
So it's like, you're right. I mean, it is something to be aware of, but it's not an end all be all stat that just determines a quarterback sucks or doesn't. As long as they're doing great stuff around that, and I think Sam's done some great stuff around that, you can take a little bit of the price of the business. And again, long term, as we're going to talk about this in the offseason, my points are going to be to it. Hey, get the pass pro a little bit better and get your run blocking more consistent, and the quarterback position will have less turnovers with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And at the end of the day, Sam Darnold is a turnover happy quarterback. He's always been a guy who turns it over more than the average quarterback. Last year at USC, he had 22 turnovers.
He's a gunslinger, man.
Yeah,
he lets it rip.
Yeah, quarterbacks do not come with a la carte listings. You can't say I want the Sam Darnold but no turnovers. Like, that's not how it works.
Agreed. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like back in the day, Seahawks fans would be like, I want the Russell Wilson, but without the greed for being the highest paid player in the league. It's like, no, yeah, that's not how it works. Either you want Russell Wilson as he is, or you don't want Russell Wilson.
That's right. 100%. It's the all different types. And, Russell had that same fourth quarter thing where he could do the magic. That was some of the good stuff he could do, the moon ball stuff, but executing offense on time in rhythm to the middle of the field, especially like, okay, well, you weren't ever going to really create that. And can you work around it? Can he still be a Super Bowl winning quarterback around quote unquote deficiencies within his game? Yes, he can. And there is no perfect quarterback. Maybe Andrew Luck was as close as we came, but or Elway or something. But I mean, like it's just something that you're not going to find the full meal deal. It's just as long as that's where we come back to really the baseline on this, Brendan, becomes what do we need from the position? And to me, if I get top 10 quarterback play with the team that we're building, that's defensive driven, that wants to run the ball, that's going to have maybe the best special teams unit all in football, that is a team that can go and win a Super Bowl. End of story. And that's really why I just kind of stay on that point as far as like that's the guiding light here. We get caught up in all of the wash on this, but that's the North Star here when it's all said and done to me.
Yeah, I want the Tom Brady, but not the kissing your children on the lips in the middle of a packed football stadium. Probably doesn't work that way.
Probably not.
All right. We do have some donos here. Let me hop on those real quick before we segue to this very intriguing Panthers game. 19 Stray, thank you for the 5. Did you guys see Macdonald at the VMAC with those stacked helmets? So savage. I did see that. That was
awesome. They were.
That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. I like it.
It is. Somebody saying online gives a whole new meaning to stacking wins. And then also, I'd love the reference online to somebody saying it would look like the Predator trophies stacked up.
Yeah, actually it did. That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, okay. I mean, he's that's not something I think Pete Carroll would have ever done, but Macdonald's found his own way and it's working really well.
I love it, man. I love it. He's his own man.
Let's see here. Nikki, thank you for the $1.99. Are we keeping AB the right guard next year or someone new? Well, I believe that AB's contract escalates pretty significantly because it's going to be the final year of his rookie deal, and there's always a big curve upwards. So money is now a factor. And I think you've given him enough chances and you have a pretty good idea of what he is. And I want to be clear here. I think that what he is not as bad as some people paint him to be, but it's not good enough to be somebody that we can rely on, clearly. And in an off season where we really shouldn't have that many needs, I think this is something we need to take care of. So I would think that we are going to get somebody new next season.
Yeah, I think that it's open-ended on this one. Brendan's point about the money is probably a fairly important one because it probably moves him up around $4 million a year, somewhere there in that nature. So it's not just rookie contract with a fourth rounder that you're looking at then at that point. I do wonder if the team's going to have their eyes on other things that they want to deal with. And so getting a super dynamic edge rusher, finding replacements at the cornerback position, finding a replacement for Kobe Bryant, who I expect is probably going to walk, what they need to do at the receiver position if they're not able to get Shaheed back here, and what do you do with Cooper Kupp on that side of it? The center position remains another one that's also a big question. Can you take care of all of that stuff? Yes, you can. Is it hard, as we've seen with offensive line, to really, I think you'd agree with this, Brendan, based off of history, we're going to get kind of one or the other positions between center and right guard. It's probably going to be unlikely you're going to deal with both. They're going to probably go, we're good on one, let's go the other. And my feeling on this is they ran at Drew Dahlman last year pretty heavily in free agency before he went to the Bears. I think they once again try to make a run of finding a center out there as that and probably roll with AB for one more year. I do think that that's the way this goes, but not because they don't want to find a replacement, Brendan, or that they love him, but because he's functional, that they're going to count on another year with him in this offense if Kubiak stays, and because I think they're just going to address other things from a priority standpoint when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't be that hard, though. There are right guards everywhere. I understand they can't invest a lot into it. I feel like you could get an upgrade without really spending a lot of resources, though. And they're going to have cap space. So I hear what you're saying for sure. I do. But at the same time, I feel like finding a competent right guard should not be something that you need to move heaven and earth for.
Well, I think we saw last year there isn't exactly a lot of guards that are going to be out there on the open market. That that you're gonna want to go into delve into that. Yeah, you're right. There's maybe a Wyatt Teller, but is Wyatt winding down in his career? Do you want to go get a 33, 34-year-old guy and hope that guy can survive a season and have a lot of confidence in that? Probably not. You're not going to. Kevin Zeitler is 36 years old. Joel Bitonio is 34 years old. I don't know that there's going to be a guy out there on the market that you're really going to want to make that run. There could be like an Elijah Vera Tucker that you like, but Vera Tucker can't stay healthy. So it's like, do you want to take that risk for a guy that now we're bringing in this whole, like, he's made a paper kind of thing to the other side of it? And look at last year, as we saw where the situation was, there was really no guards except Will Freeze and what did we have? The Tevin Jenkins. And I think you're going to probably see it when it's all said and done, kind of similar in a situation. So you're right. It should be something that potentially could be there to upgrade and look draft. Grab one of these right tackles, bump them into right guard. That could be an instant upgrade in there. But also, does the team, if it's only going to be through the draft for a team that's going to be a Super Bowl contending team, do they want to put a rookie right guard out there versus a guy that, hey, we want to continue the progress this year? We don't want to go through ups and downs of a rookie here. This isn't a team that's in that preparation point to do that. Does that factor in? Where's Haynes at as far as they're looking at him? Is he just completely tossed away? Some of this is that it's hard to say because we just don't know where the team stands on a couple of different points with this to truly determine this.
I mean, I wouldn't mind betting on Zeitler having one more decent year in him, honestly. Like, he's been kept it going for so long. Like, at this point, it's like Calais Campbell. I don't feel like betting against that guy anymore.
I can't do it. 36 in this scheme that needs mobility and needs you to move out in space. And, Zeitler's a good blocker, but you want to keep him in the phone booth. You don't want him out there on the highway. And this offense is going to ask you to get out on the highway sometimes.
Tevin Jenkins has played right guard before. You could go get him. He'll be a free agent. He only had the 1-year deal.
I mean, you could. I don't think that then it's in there for competition for him and AB at that point, right? So it's not even a guarantee he starts, and he's not going to get much money sitting as a backup this year when he didn't get much money in the open market last year, coming off a year where he's starting. Just kind of comes down as we're banding about these names, Brendan. Zeitler, Tevin Jenkins. There's not great options there. What we'd like to do is get this significantly improved, and none of those are going to significantly improve the position. It's going to be moderate improvement at best. And if that's the case, what's the point of doing it then? Like if you're really not getting much of a return back on it.
And to be clear, I'm fine if it's AB next year, as long as you do fix the center spot, like just do something. Because I don't think AB is as bad as people think. And I think that if you fix center and you make him kind of the squeaky wheel, because I'm assuming that Zabel gets better next year, by the way, because Zabel, he's got his own problems right now, but I'm assuming that gets better with time. I think that you can live with the squeaky wheel. It's okay, especially at right guard.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that we've had the 2 weak links this year with center and right guard that's been really the problematic side of this. Especially as you mentioned with Brantford, there's good reps he gives you too. So yeah, there's ugly reps. When they're bad, they're really bad. We come back to that feast or famine factor, this team just universally all the way through. But I do think that he can be fine with a better center in there, and you can still maybe potentially address it. The problem, I'll tell you, with guards and looking and scouting these guards early on in this draft, there's not a lot of guys that I jump out at and I go, yeah, this is the guy on this way. Go for this guy right here. There's a lot of guys that I look at that are tackles that I'd love to move into right guard. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that look at him as right tackles and don't want to move him into guard. And you could really come back to, again, in the draft, even running into it where it's like, well, there's just not we have the want, we have the will, we don't have the asset out there available to actually go and get.
Right. I mean, like people talk about Jennings Dunker being a first-round pick and then you move him inside. Like, I feel like if he's a first-round pick, somebody's going to go, no, we want that guy to play a more valuable position than right guard. Like, we'll at least want him at left guard, if not right tackle.
It's a creative solution to this. And look, I love Jennings Dunker. So, and Jennings is the one guy that I look at that really has a potential of having teams say he's got to slide into guard because, that Iowa offense, Brendan, remember last year with Caleb Johnson, it's run 24/7. So there's a lot of protection on their offensive linemen and pass pro by the limitations of passing attempts within the offense contextually. So him coming here, and when you watch him, his limitations come with the kick step slide where you go, ooh, yeah, he just doesn't have as much of that lateral ability to get out to the edge to get to those twitchy edges. Where the guy out of, for instance, Miami, I can't say his name, it's one of those $10 handle of a names. He's a guy that probably has just enough to make it work as a right tackle at the pro level. That's a guy that probably remains out there. But Dunker's an interesting guy, and I do think he's going to be a second-round pick because he gives you that, well, if he washes out a tackle, we can break him into guard, and he's kind of, to me, a little bit of almost he's not the Graham Barton Zabel of this draft, but there's kind of a little bit there where you get a 2-for-1 potential position there a little bit with him. You can maybe give you some reps to tackle if you have something with an injury front. But he's also a pure zone fit blocker too, because that's what Iowa runs almost 24/7 a little bit is the zone stuff. So he's also a fit there. The mobility is really great. His pad level too, Brendan, he plays with is really nice and low for a right tackle. So transitioning him into guard, as we've talked about with making those guys that like to play high at tackle, that's not going to work. But if you got that lower leverage point already in you and how you go, because Iowa teaches their linemen so good on the technique, it could make some sense. It would be you stretching a little bit, Brendan. It would, to go to first round for him. First, probably the second round status he should have, but you might have to do it if you want to get him, where it's not going to be back around you in the second round if you try to wait on that one, or you're going to have to trade up in the second round if you wait around on that one.
Yeah, because hopefully we'll be picking a 32.
There we go.
Hopefully. But yeah,
Hopefully.
It's just, I think about stuff like that. And I think about, if a player has a choice, he's going to want to play tackle because tackles get paid more. If he can be both good in both positions, and teams, if they can have an option, they're going to want to put good players at the most valuable position possible. Like if you're drafting a guy in the first round, maybe you end up putting him at right guard because that's just the way things crumble. But you would much prefer to put him at a higher leverage position, like right tackle, like left guard.
I agree with you there. I think that it's also, though, that if you have an offensive line you're building like we have that's starting to get fuller out and down the line, and you're like, hey, this is the final piece of the puzzle, right? That, if you've gone out there and grabbed a Linderbaum at center in free agency, and then you get Dunker in there at right guard, you're looking at that offensive line like, look out, if it's to top off and just get that final piece of the puzzle in place, you do it. And it's from a prospect perspective, they may not like it, but there's a rich history of these guys having to be moved out of outside of tackle going into guard. This is a very commonality, especially for teams that are looking for zone-based blockers on the inside. You're not finding a lot of guards. This is the problem right now with this draft class, quite frankly, Brendan, is that there's a lot of guys that are good pass protectors in the guard position, but they're not good movers. They're not good run blockers. They're not necessarily great zone blockers at that. So this is sometimes the only way to go and get those guys to make your system work.
Mm-hmm. Right. So long story short, I think it's inconclusive that we move off of AB. I think there's a chance. I wouldn't be shocked either way, but it's one off season. We also don't have a lot of picks. Like we're also working with a very limited pool of picks right now.
True. Mm-hmm. Very true.
North Swing, thank you for the 10 Canadian. Merry Christmas, Brendan. Thanks for all the Hawks coverage. Well, thank you, North Swing. We do our best. Yeah, we do our best.
Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Very kind of you.
And on the subject of Christmas, we also had this from Roy Froelich of $20 Canadian.
Merry Christmas, Roy.
Yeah, this is on my side, and that is on your side, I believe.
Let's give him applause for that one. Give him a little applause for that one. Thank you, Roy. Very kind of you, man. You've donated a ton to both of our channels, and Merry Christmas to you as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Roy. Merry Christmas to you as well. Let's see here. Feed me more for the $2. What were your thoughts about the refs, Brendan? All right. So, basically, the way I understand it is that there were a couple different flashpoints in that game that people were wondering about. There was the first one was in the first quarter, the illegal man downfield, which I actually I don't know anything about the illegal man downfield call, really. So I don't know how they are supposed to rule in that situation where the guy goes for a block and then he kind of falls forward past the line. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's legal or not. So I can't really speak to that. I did no research on that this week. I researched the 2-point conversion heavily because I was writing an article for it, but I don't know anything about the illegal man downfield call.
It's the correct call. You get a yard. We've been called twice on this. I don't know if you remember, Brendan, but we've had it called twice on us. It's a point of emphasis in the NFL right now. And you only get 1 yard. College, I think you get 2 yards. But in the NFL, you only get 1 yard to go up the field. I've looked at the play plenty of times. I brought it up last night on the roundtable and showed it to everybody on the roundtable because the Rams, Jake in there was super like, oh, it was the worst call ever type of thing. They said on the telecast, and I think this is what threw Rams fans off, is that Jaron Reed pushed him. Jaron Reed did not push him. I played the over and over again. He pushes into Jaron Reed. What happens here, Brendan, is you have Dotson go down, right? This kid comes right back out there. It's almost like the next play. And he's super overeager. He's got the adrenaline pumping through his veins, right? He's like, don't mess up, right? Like anybody would be in that situation. He gets a little bit too hot to trot on the play. And he launches out of his stance and gets into Jaron Reed. He gets a little bit of push on Jaron Reed. He keeps going. Jaron brings in a swim move, arm over hand like this. Jaron never gets the push. He just gets the arm over aspect of it. You can literally freeze frame it where the guy's about 1.5 yards in the end zone. When the ball's still in the hand of Matt Stafford, I literally could do a pause and you can literally see the ball's in the hand of Stafford. He's a yard. And remember, they started the play out at the 1 yard line. So anything into the end zone is past 1 yard by just the sheer nature of the fact you started at the 1. So it was the right call. It's the correct call. It's part of what I didn't understand about the Rams fans getting so pissy about it, where it's like, dude, they got it right. Your guy can't go down the field like that. This is a very straightforward rule in that way.
Right. So I did do a lot of research into the 2-point conversion thing, although a lot of people did as well, because that was such a unique play. A lot of people, Field Goals didn't write up on it. I know Terry McLaughlin was writing a novel on X about it. Fascinating play, but it does seem like they got every element of it by the book. And credit to them for that, by the way, because there was one really obscure rule they had to pull out to make that call. And they did call it right, even though you might never see it again because it's so unlikely that it ever comes up. But there was that. And honestly, when you move past that, the thing that I really remember from that game, referee-wise, was the personal foul on Ty Okada, which really confused me how they got to that one. And that almost handed the Rams the game because that got them in field goal range in the fourth quarter. They missed it, luckily. But I did not really see anything there. I got to be honest. Like, honestly, if I were to move past those two big plays that everyone's talking about, that's the play that I'm kind of hung up on.
Yeah, I didn't have as much issue with that one because if there's any kind of neck or head hitting at all on those kind of plays, it's an auto call. So even if it's a glancing blow on the helmet or face mask, if there's any touching whatsoever, it's just going to be rung up. I don't like that necessarily, but that's just, it is what it is with the rule on that one. The 2-point conversion, to your point on this, is I cannot think of a time in NFL history that a backwards pass ended up going forward. Can you?
No.
So
I don't think so.
Ram fans get caught up on this. They had to go over here and they had to review this. And it's like, well, number one, we've never seen that play before. So that kind of adds to your point on this being one of the, we'll never see that type of thing again. So it's rather than the refs being against your Rams fans, it's kind of that you had this weird, that's never occurs in a game type of situation. The other part that made this play happen was the automatic review on the 2-point conversions. And you can get mad about that, but that's the rule that's in place. Now, should the rules be less convoluted? Should they streamline things? Should it not be like this and then if that, but if this, but if that, then this, then that? Sure, I'm with everybody else on streamlining it. I've said it for a long period of time. I think there's way too much arbitrary nature to the rules and how it's called. But that being said, this was not an arbitrary nature rule. This wasn't a moment where the official called a play and he just got the call wrong. They had a chance to review it. They had a chance to make sure they got it right, and they got it right. It's kind of the odd part to me that so many Ram fans are so mad about that, where it's like, this isn't a bang, bang moment situation. This is that they took the time to make sure that they got this exactly on point.
Right. And I know McVay came out a couple days later and was like, we should try to get flukes out of the game because the play is on some level of fluke, but how are you going to get flukes out of football? Like that really didn't make sense to me. It makes me think of the famous saying from Phil Hellmuth, who has this phrase that he uses, which is like, if not for luck, I'd win every time. And that's kind of what that makes me think of. It's like, yeah, but you're playing poker. There's a lot of luck involved, whether you like it or not. Find a different thing to play if you're not willing to live with that. Go play chess or something where there isn't any luck. So it's like flukes are going to be part of this. Like the Immaculate Reception is the most famous play in the history of the sport. One of the biggest flukes ever. You're not going to be able to legislate that out of the game. And why would you want to?
Right. It's the old saying that you watch a baseball game and you'll always see something that you've never seen. And we don't say that about football, but that's going to be the case. As you watch games in football, there's going to be times where you see something that you've never seen before. And guess what? It happened this last Sunday too. Twice we've had 2 plays we'll never see ever again. Twice you had a game against Pittsburgh and Detroit that ends with Detroit getting the game-winning touchdown and there's a flag, but the game is over. And Detroit loses the game. Like theoretically go, that's so fluky. I mean, if it's not a touchdown, then it's got to be a flag and you got to call the flag and then we get one more chance on a play, right? But that wasn't the case because the rules got this little stipulation in there. If it's offense and it's down to this and it's on the offense, no, you don't get the benefit of the doubt on that extra play. So it's like, you're never going to see a play like that either that we saw on Sunday. And that's back to the point of this being that really you shouldn't. And this is why it's surprising to me McVay's hammered this so much. And there's a part of me that wonders with how much the Ram fans have been so pissy about this and how much he's so much pissy about this, Brendan. I kind of hope that they let this get in their head in the way that it seems. I kind of do. Because you had 88 offensive plays in this football game. You had three and outs in the fourth quarter of this football game. You had every opportunity in the whole rest of this game to go and take this game, and you didn't do it. You had 5 times on the other side of our 50, and you didn't put a touchdown in on those 5 drives. That's why you lost the game, and it's why I've always said, and you know I've said this, and I've been consistent about this. It's always about consistency with me and being principled. I'm the very same way when we talk about the Super Bowl play, right? And the whole should have handed off, should have handed off, should have handed off. It's the very same thing conceptually going on here that's going on with the Rams and even McVay. You're getting caught up on this one play in a game where there's 130 other plays. All those other rest of the other plays determined this win and loss, not that one play. And people like to treat it like it's everything was 50-50 all the way down through the whole rest of the game, just even, and it's just one play. This one, it's asinine, it's ridiculous. I don't buy any of it, Brendan, and just kind of comes off as sour grapes and coping to me.
Yeah, and I mean that is kind of the way things are in sports right now in general. There's and there is a lot of bad officiating across sports. I understand that they allow this to happen in some ways, but I am looking back at that game and I am seeing something that I think was actually called fairly well, especially given the fact that it went to overtime. I don't think I don't think they decided the game at all. Like even if you say the illegal man downfield was a bad call, that happened in the first quarter. It happened like an eternity before that game was decided.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. That's the part about this. And it's they're dead space with it where they don't seem to realize there's actually been games that we've played literally against the Rams. The Rams have played against other teams where it has not just been one play that you get a cherry pick from one point of the game, but it's actually been the decisive moment in the game that they're making the play. Witherspoon, I went back and looked at this, Brendan. I went back and watched this one 2 years ago. We're in Los Angeles, 3rd down and goal. They get an incompletion on the pass. Here comes a penalty flag on Devin Witherspoon for illegal contact. There is no illegal contact. The feet get tangled up with Quandre Diggs as he's running a crossing route. Quandre's got as much of a chance, he can be in that spot. He doesn't have to get out of the receiver's way. And if the legs get tangled, it's inadvertent. There is no foul. But they gave him that freebie on the flag, gave him the touchdown. There you go. How about the interception last year, Brendan, with Ahkello Witherspoon pinning the ball to the ground? They rule that an interception, right? That ends our season. That takes us out of the playoffs at that point, literally costs us in that manner. You have a play in this game that no Ram fans won't even talk about, by the way, where Ernest Jones gets the interception there in overtime, but they overturn it. So here on one side, we have our season ended on one. If you want to show me those two plays, Brendan, if I showed you that Ahkello Witherspoon interception and I showed you that Ernest Jones interception, and I'd say, which one of these is more of a catch? You'd go to the Ernest Jones one all day because he's literally pinning the ball to the ground to make the reception being Witherspoon. Without the ground, there is no catch. But because it doesn't move, well, did the ground aid the catch or not? It absolutely aided it. So, they're inconsistent on this, Brendan, and they've gotten so many calls through the years and how we've played them. That game, for instance, with Witherspoon at the end of that game, that you had that play that got them the touchdown, that got them that win, that was a game where you had 130 penalty yards on the day. And guess who over the last 10 years has been the least penalized team in the entire NFL, Brendan? Take a wild guess.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew they had been the least penalized this year. I didn't know over the last 10 years, but I'm not.
I went and looked it up. Yeah, it's over the last 9 years, they've been in the top 10 7 times. The other 2 times, they've only been in the teens. They've never been in the 20s. And most of the time when they're up in that spot, they're either at 1, 2, 3. They're right up in the top of the spot as far as the numbers go on those penalties. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I find it really silly that this is the team that's going to start talking about cherry picking one play in one particular game and sort of trying to intimate somehow the refs are working in their favor.
Yeah.
Hell, just look at the play last week. You saw the Lions catch with the Rams, right? The one with Parkinson, where his knees down on the 1.5 yard line. You know what I mean? Like that's, hell, wait, I want to show you this, Brendan. Like that was just literally 1 week ago, right? So does that look like he's in the end zone to you, Brendan? Huh?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I understand that one.
And then there's the Achillea one for you, by the way. Do you see how the ground literally is between his hands? There's no hands underneath the ball. Do you notice that? I know it's kind of hard to see, but
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the plays. Believe me. I mean, I know what you're talking about for sure. It gets old. It's like I'd rather listen to a Thunder fan say they didn't get enough free throws last night.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, maybe the better reference for this particular fan base would be the Phoenix Suns, but whatever. Point I'm trying to make is that I really don't care. I really do not care about what they think, whether or not they think the universe is fighting against them getting what they want, is what I'm trying to get at there. And kind of feeding into that, we have this from Feed Me More. The Rams fans crying about the refs afterwards made the game even sweeter. And then second point here, if Riley becomes a competent 3-tech, what happens to Byron Murphy at nose? I feel like Riley Murphy. Well, okay. So we already kind of talked about the ref thing, so I don't think there's anything more to say about it.
Yeah.
If Riley becomes a competent 3-tech, I feel like Riley's going to be a rotational player because he is so unequipped to play against the run. So I think he's going to be like a NASCAR package type player, maybe. So I don't think it intrudes that much on what Murphy's doing.
Hard to say, really. Feed me, it is. I mean, they've kept him in nose tackle by and large this year, and he's found effectiveness in that role. I do somewhat feel like maybe the thing with what they're going to look to do with Riley is potentially move on with Jaron, and sort of Riley takes over the Jaron Reed role, or maybe they just go with the 4-3 techs. I've wondered about some of this being that we might be seeing some of the transition here to more of a 2-3 tech situation on a defensive tackle on the defensive line as a standard in the NFL, that we're going to move away from the 330-pound body types, and it's going to go more to having these guys that are a little bit sub 300 pounds. I've seen a couple other teams that are kind of running that same sort of situation. The Falcons have done so this year. The Rams have done so this year. So that may be a part of it that factors into this as well. And they do feel like, no, to your point, I don't buy into that. I think he can do it very well, but the team and even Mike Macdonald has said that they'll even give him some 1-tech snaps in there, being Riley Mills. So they seem to have an outlook on this for it. It seems to be a bit of where the transition to Torrey State is at as far as the defensive tackle in football. But it's kind of hard to say right now exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there is precedence for lighter guys being good at nose tackle. Like Jay Ratliff was a great nose tackle for many years in the NFL, and he was probably about 290. But I would not bet on it, and I don't understand where the Riley Mills nose tackle thing comes from based on what I've seen of him. But, I mean, I certainly didn't think JSN would be an elite outside receiver at any point in his life in the NFL, and here we are.
Agreed. I mean, that's just too, it's where the game's always moving and modulating and changing and updating. And give me 1 second here.
All right, no problem. One quick note for everybody in the audience tonight. I believe there's going to be another windstorm blowing in here at some point. So there is some small chance that my power gets shut off again. If it happens in the middle of the show, I apologize. But just give me like 5 minutes to try to come back. And if I can't come back by then, I got nothing.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see here. Green 80, thank you for the 14 Canadian. Merry Christmas, BNB. Love the content all these years. This year is our year. Brandon, don't let Jake get away with nothing. Go Hawks.
Well, thank you, Green 80. And yeah, Brandon, I went kind of in last night on Jake and the Rams, and it wasn't just as much about Jake as much as where the Rams fans had been at on this thing and listening to them for 3 days bitch and moan about the refs, and just kind of reached a spot for me where I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm just going to let this sit. So I had to kind of go in last night. And so
it's 5 days after the game. I understand that, the day after the game, whatever, you're emotional, you're frustrated. There's a decent chance their team just blew their season, right? That game may have been the difference between them winning the Super Bowl and maybe not even winning a playoff game. So I understand that, the day after, you're going to be upset. You're going to be in your feelings, but it's 5 days later. A cooler head should have prevailed by that point.
That's my thinking on it as well. I agree with you. I think if you're in the moment, I get it. After a game, I get it. But they kept hammering it. And so it's like, all right, let's address it then. Let's bring out the stuff and let's really get into this. You prove the case to it. And when you put up their case, there's not a lot there. Really, there isn't. It's them just in kind of their feelings about it more than it is them actually really able to tangibly point to the ref somehow having if there's 14 yards of penalty difference in this game, Brendan. It's like,
Right.
what are we doing? I mean, they let the players play. They treat it like a playoff game. They let them go. They weren't going to have the officials be over officiating or let flags determine this game. And I like that about that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I haven't had a chance to watch last night's roundtable. One question I do have, though, because I haven't watched in a little bit. What is the Cardinals guy? What's his name? Mike? What's he up to ththese days? Like, what do you say at this point? Like their season's been done for 2 months. What does he even do?
I mean, he's gone through it. He's gone through the whole spectrum of, from being pissed to making your peace with it, to resigned, to then back over to frustrated, I think he's gone through all of the litany of emotions, and it doesn't help when you have the best division in football above you, right? It's like one thing when you're in a crap division. I was joking with him last night. If you guys were in the NFC South, you would have been in second place this year. It's just sucks that you're in this toughest division in football in addition, where it just doesn't get any easier. So he's going through it, but he's dealt with it with a lot of, I think he's dealt with it really well. I don't know if I would have been able to kind of roll with the punches as well as he has, given this tough of a year. And so props to him, because it's not easy showing up there every day on a loss. It's much funner to be able to go in there with a win and be able to just put your chest out and be like, yeah, we're awesome.
Yeah. I mean, if he's still showing up, good for him, because I think there are some people that would struggle to show up.
Yep. He's faced the fire every week, and you got to give him props. Got to give him props on that.
Mm-hmm. Feed me. Thank you for the $2. How is 10 years least penalized not sus? Come on. I mean, it has to be somebody, right? Somebody's got to be in last place, but it's just like, I remember back in 2021, which is of course the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. And I saw, what's the name of the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy? The announcer.
Oh yeah. I forget. Michael something, right? Michael.
Yeah. Someone in the chat will say who it is. So I'll depend on the chat to help me out here. But, when he starts coming out and doing the Let's Get Ready to Rumble thing before every home Rams game, I remember just thinking to myself, okay, I know what's going on here. I remember getting so annoyed at how bougie that was. And it feeds into that, doesn't it?
I think it does. I mean, I think the thing with this and what Jake tried to tell me last night is it's just that McVay's so good with discipline, and just he's so amazing with his discipline and getting that locked in. And I mean, maybe he's right with that. I just think that there's going to be more fluctuation, though. You're going to have years where there's injuries. You're going to have years where you got to play backups. It shouldn't be kind of a 10-year mainstay situation that you look at a team and there's that much of just locked in the same spot year in and year out. And this also happened. Yeah, McVay came there, and this happened when McVay came there. But what else happened at that time when this penalty situation flipped in this way for the Rams, just coincidentally, was when they transitioned from St. Louis to Los Angeles. And I've always come back to this saying, what do we know about the NFL when it comes to Los Angeles? That they absolutely positively cannot have another LA team fail out of there. They got to keep at least one LA team in that market. And it's the Rams team that they want to make sure that they can make go in that market. So it's like, am I connecting some dots? Sure. Am I trying to say everything's rigged, or that? I'm not trying to necessarily say that, but I am saying that, it is kind of odd that the benefit of the doubt for almost this 10-year period has shifted in their direction on this. And how many times we've had to face that end of it, where it's not only that it's gone in their direction penalty wise, but I can point to a lot of different individual situations where it's like, it's the DJ Dallas catch from a couple of years ago, Brendan, where DJ Dallas is at the end of the game with Russell Wilson, remember, driving you down, throws the ball on a fourth down, completely gets pass interference. It's as clear as you can see. And they don't call it. Game over for us. I can go to all of these moments like the Witherspoon play, where it's like, not only did you guys have the play going your way, but it happened at a super, remember with this, when it comes to if it's or game's rigged or if officials are kind of in the pocket of somebody else, it's not just the number of flags, it's the timing. The timing of when it comes up. Does it hit a game-changing play? Does it take away a game-changing play that you just had happen? I mean, that's also a big part of it. And these individual points I can point to were exactly that. So, it's a little sus.
Mm-hmm. Feed me more. Thank you for the $2 once again. AD was offsides on game-winning sack in Super Bowl 56. I've never heard that one before. That would be a new one.
I haven't, but of course we do have, even in that game, that's just like, see, we can even just go to let's go to any random Rams game here, Brendan, because what happened in that game, Brendan? What was the big call in that game that shifted everything?
The third down illegal contact on, was it Jermaine Pratt?
You said third down? So like they wouldn't, all they're done, they'd have to they'd be done with at that point if they didn't get it, if they didn't offer the penalty, right? Instead of the automatic first down that they got that then led to the touchdown, the game-winning score that then got them the Super Bowl. And the interesting part about that is that had there been any illegal contact called throughout the whole course of that game? No. They called it at that one precipitous moment on one of the final drives. So after letting the players play fully through the game, after letting them have the standard of how we're going to let you guys play today. And that standard is pretty consistent with what you do in a playoff atmosphere. Let the players play. Don't let the officials determine it. But then you bring out that flag at that one key moment, kind of like you did the prior year, if I'm not mistaken, or the year after that with the Eagles in the Chiefs game, right? Because the very same thing happened with Gardner Johnson in the Chiefs-Eagles game, where, again, through a whole game, you hadn't called it. Final last drive by the Chiefs. Now here comes the flag magically. And that's the part where it's very...
I think it was Adoree Jackson, not Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but still.
Still, at the end of the game, hadn't called it all game, had the standard in place, and then you flip the standard on its head. And then everybody goes, well, yeah, it's definitely holding there. I mean, that's definitely what it is. Yeah, but the whole game you're letting these guys get away with it. And they know you're letting them get away with it. And that's BS to just sort of call it on the line at one given convenient moment versus the standard that you had set on the day. The relation to this is always back to umpires and strike zones in baseball. Is the zone going to be a little wider today? Is the zone going to be a little higher today? Okay, well then just keep that consistency of that zone for all 9 innings. Don't have the zone tight through the first 3 innings and then wide through the back 3rd innings. That's BS.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Martin Lawrence, thank you for the 5, I think, euro. I didn't like the non-calls on holding in the Rams game, but I thought the officials were consistent in their calls, and that's all we can ask for.
That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I'm generally speaking, I've kind of learned to not bother complaining about no calls on holding, because when you watch this sport long enough, you realize there's holding constantly, and the league does or the referees rather, kind of pick and choose which ones to call, and they always will, and they always have. So whenever there's like a no call and a holding, I don't throw a fit about it, because I understand that there's holding on every play, but it gets to a point where they're calling it all for one side and not for the other side. That's when I start to go, wait a minute here.
Agreed. I think that, to Martin's point on this, and this comes back to what I think they were trying to do, in which I applaud the NFL on this. I think they came into this game and they said, we got the game of the year. We have a game that everybody's going to be watching nationally because it's on primetime television. We've had some problems with officials this year. A little bit of that narrative is out there. The narrative coming off this game at the end of this game cannot be that it was over-officiated, that flags were the determining cause for this game. So we're going to let the players play on the back of it. We're going to treat it like a playoff game. And you do this in basketball too. You see the same thing in basketball. Basketball will be touchy during the regular season. They get the playoffs. They do let them have a little bit more freedom on the way they let them play. This is the nature of the beast a little bit. So I like that they did it, Martin, and they were consistent on both sides of the ball in that way. And that's all you can, like I said, that's all you can ask for. Just be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Marty, thank you for the $4.99. A lot of smoke about Lamar's future with Baltimore. If Darnold goes pumpkin in playoffs, would a Lamar trade excite you? Now, this is like a Polymarket tweet or something.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go pretty big pumpkin at this point to be able to toss away for me, Marty, all that he's done this year to earn the goodwill that he's earned. And at Pro Bowl quarterback now, I know that's not worth a lot, but look, there's only 3 guys that you can announce. He's one of the top 3 in the NFC as far as their outlook if it goes. Lamar was always a guy that I thought was not going to have a long shelf life in this NFL. And that's being because he chose through the early part of his career, and the team chose through a lot of the early part of his career to use him like a running back. And to have him out there not sliding, diving head first. You know, he takes this knee to the back that he talks about getting knocked out on, and he treats it in a press conference like the guy had done something dirty. Well, if you just slid with your legs rather than your face, you don't have to take the knee in your back, and it's not even dirty anyway. So I think with Lamar, there's going to be a wearing down, and a little bit like we saw with Russ, the second he uses his leg, doesn't have his legs to lean back on, and he can't be what he's been in that way, you're going to get a heavily reduced Lamar Jackson at that point as far as his ability to execute the position.
Yeah, this is not a good time anyway. I kind of feel like I don't want to say it's a wrap for Lamar. I don't think he's ever going to be an MVP caliber quarterback again. One way or the other, whether injury or play, I think the party's kind of over.
Kind of do too. I think it's really hard to maintain that. And I was saying this about early in his career. He's exciting. It's fun to watch, but there's a price to be paid when you're going to play like that. You know, you're going to take the rubber off the tires, and you're going to get to your early 30s, and you're going to be like, where's my tread? Where'd my tread go? It's like, well, you played the position without any safety measures built in. You didn't try to protect your body. You just ran out there and let go loose and reckless, and great. You're reckless. You're exciting as hell to watch, but the price will be paid. The toll must be paid, Brendan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know. He also does this thing where, I know this is a little bit subjective, but he really tries to be like a player GM with the way he demands his team goes after certain players. And I know that a couple other quarterbacks do that as well, but he clearly has no idea who good players are. Like, he's like, go get Jair Alexander, give Jair Alexander whatever he wants, and then the guy can't play anymore because duh. And the team only brought him in because Lamar was demanding it.
He's also getting to that point, to your point on this, where he's starting to kind of pipe up a little bit as far as trying to make demands and getting a little bit. I'm not saying it's a full diva thing with it, but there's some vibes there that are kind of a little bit off, to your point as well, that would have me as just kind of a final point to it going, I don't think I want to jump into that pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. GM players play, coaches coach, GMs GM. That's the old Parcells quote.
Concentrate on playing the quarterback position. It's hard enough. I don't need you doing other stuff on top of it.
Jeffrey, thank you for the $5. New 2-point play, ping the ball off the back of the defender's helmet and pick it up in the end zone. Easy, go Hawks. Need our offense to pick it up. Well, one underrated element of that 2-point conversion that I think we forgot to talk about this because of everything else. It's a 2-point conversion with the game on the line, and we ran a bubble screen to Zach Charbonnet. Like, can we be serious for a second here? Can we be serious?
Kind of a weird call. That is for sure. And one they saw obviously coming from a mile away, in addition to not being the best at play calls, because Jared Verse is launching off the line of scrimmage like his life depends on it, as far as getting out back there and creating that space to not give Sam an angle to make the throw.
Yeah,
I gotta say
there were like 6 Rams defenders that were going to tackle Charbonnet if he caught that too. Like Kobe Durant's right there. There were a bunch of linemen. Like, they were in the huddle for that one. That's all I can say.
It definitely was a play that was not going to get in if you didn't. But it's also a play that does go showing you how coaching and coaching details matters, and that if you get just too big picture at times and you don't get into the details of things as a coach, you could be leaving things on the table as far as not just advantages, but ways to go win the game. And it's partly something the Rams fans haven't talked about, is that Charbonnet said in the post-game presser that Mike Macdonald teaches them that when there's a loose ball, you go and pick it up on the ground. That's a coaching point of emphasis that they put in. And I just keep coming back to, like, Ram fans, you're not looking at your coach going, hey, why isn't this our point of emphasis? None of you are asking that question. And maybe you should be, because that's a place that Mike does teach that. And that's why Charbonnet walked over there and still grabbed the ball. As nonchalant as he may have seemed to do it, he still went over there and grabbed it. And I still maintain that even if the whistle hadn't blown, he was the lead guy to go pick up that ball.
Right. Yeah. And as for need our offense to pick it up, I mean, even if you take out overtime and you take out the Rashid touchdown, this offense did put up 22 points against an elite Rams defense. And I do think they're elite even after what happened on Thursday. Like, I mean, I understand that there were too many 3 and outs. The turnovers are frustrating. But, I mean, how much better do you think they're going to be? This is the cheapest offense in football. Like, I don't really think that there should be an expectation you score more than about 22 points in that game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think that the offense is just, to your point, there's only so much you're going to correct with what you have and what you've invested in this offense and the dead money that you're sustaining that comes off the offense, and that they've had to pay that price this year a little bit to the tune of about $60 million that they don't have actively out there on the field working in their favor. So I think I probably agree with that down the line, that this is about as good as you. I think, to Jeffrey's point, what you can do and what you can control here is going to be the protecting of the ball and trying to be a little bit more careful with the ball. And fumbles, this is one of the places where these guys got to get 2 hands on the ball at times. They've got to start to recognize that it's not just been the Sam throwing the interceptions, it's also been the fumbles of the players and a variety of players across the board that this has been an issue with. So 2 hands on the ball has got to be a little bit more of a mainstay here. That's the easy, quick correction. And Sam continued to lean into the stuff that he's leaned into since the Rams game a little bit. And I got a great defense. I got a great special teams. The running game is kind of coming along bit by bit. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to put this team up on my shoulders to go win games, and just play within myself and be careful with the ball, and we can go get it done.
Let's see here. Jathan Kumar. Thank you for the 2. Great work last night, Brandon.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate all your donations last night as well, man. And I had a great night. That was a lot of fun going on there and locking horns up with Jake. And and having it out there. So, and Jake does great work. He's an awesome content creator on what he does in covering the Rams too. But it was a lot of fun. That's why we do this round table, is there's going to be those moments that we're going to go at it.
Yeah, and Jesse's probably feeling pretty good too. Those Niners, don't forget about them. They're still hanging around somehow.
Oh, he's dreaming big. He's got that first round bye, and we got another hat bet on the line. And I had Jake last night, by the way, in a Seahawks beanie, which was pretty cool. So it's also I got another one there set up with Jesse at the end of the year as well. So hopefully I can not only have our Hawks finish off the season right, but my bets can finish off the season right.
Upo, thank you for the 10. Happy holidays, guys, and to all your listeners too. I hate it when fans blame referees and umpire calls. You get some you didn't deserve and vice versa. Just play ball and run the next play. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind when the complaints actually have two functional legs to stand on. It gets old, though, when you break it down and it's clear that what is really being complained about is, well, they wanted the rules to be changed to benefit them in that particular moment. And that's what this has come down to. Like, I'm sure you've seen some people say that, well, they should change the whistle rule back. They should make the whistle kill the play. Like they should, because I remember the game. I very clearly remember the game where that caused them to change the whistle rule. It was the Jay Cutler Broncos versus the Phillip Rivers Chargers. Broncos driving down for a game-tying field goal or touchdown, and then empty hand, Jay Cutler, fumble, Chargers pick it up, but Ed Hockley blew the whistle early. They looked at the replay and they were like, well, it's clearly a fumble and it's clearly recovered by the Chargers, but there's nothing we can do because we blew the whistle. So the Broncos won because of that. That was 2008. I remember this. And they changed the rule that offseason because they were like, well, that was really not fair. Now we're going to say that if it's in the continuous action after the whistle, you can still recover the fumble. So, I mean, that's what the rule is right now. If the rule needs to be changed, that's something that will be visited in the offseason. You don't visit that in the middle of a game in week 15 of the regular season, or week 16, excuse me.
I agree with you. And I think Kupo, happy holidays to you too as well. Thank you for that $10 dono. I do agree with you. I kind of find myself in between with both you on this, where it's like, I'm with Brendan on the words. If there's valid reason and that there's this stuff, I think like that Indianapolis Colts game last week before we played the Rams, that there was some strange stuff going there with that one. But that's been the only game this year that I've really had that come up on, quite frankly. I think we've had some really well officiated games, including this last Rams game. But back around to it too. It's like, Gupo, if they are going to complain, make sure it's about something that's actually wrong, that the officials actually failed at what they got as far as the call. Don't point to two calls that were actually the correct calls just because emotionally you don't like them. And that seems to be a little bit at play there with what happened in this Rams game from Rams fans' perspective.
Like, I think actually this came from Stafford of all people, not Kelly, but Matt, which makes this really kind of weird to me. Matt Stafford after the game said the referee should have used common sense to waive the 2-point conversion off. And it's like, how can a referee use common sense? He has to follow the rule book. Job.
It's none of it's made any sense. All of their and like I did this with Jake. Jake started playing the what if game with me. What if somebody had come up and smacked Zach Charbonnet? That would have been a 15-yard penalty. What if one of our guys picked it up and ran it back? They wouldn't have gotten a 2-point conversion for it. What if? What actually happened? What actually occurred on the field? And what do the rules say about what actually occurred on the field?
What if Mike Macdonald runs onto the field and kicks the ball through the upright? Like,
I know it's like we can put like what if everything? You could go play that game forever. Like that's not what happened. So let's talk about what actually occurred. Mm-hmm. We got to come back to like if your coach was teaching your players maybe pick up loose ball like my coach was as a coaching point. Maybe you guys would have had a chance to get it, but he doesn't teach that. But they don't want to own that part of it. Yeah. Well, own it. Your guys didn't teach it. McVay's a great coach. This is one spot that he didn't teach that Mike had the better of him on. How about that? Don't want to consider that though.
Yeah. And the other angle for me is just like, it's never going to be perfect. No matter what you make the rule, there will still be a circumstance where somebody could get where something that isn't in the spirit of the game could happen. Something fluky could happen. Something weird could happen. Like even like, okay, the whistle kills the play or not kills the play rule. Like they changed it because they felt like the Chargers got screwed in that one game, and they did. And now they're saying, well, they should change it back because now the Rams got screwed. The point is somebody's getting hosed, right? Like it's going to be unfair to somebody, but deal with it. It's like, it's kind of like, not to get too political on this show. It's like freedom of speech. Yeah, sometimes freedom of speech creates bad things happen because we have freedom of speech. It's still better to have it and just live with the bad things sometimes, because not having it would be worse. But that doesn't make it perfect.
Agreed.
That doesn't mean it produces the right, exact, perfect, optimal result every single time. But it's still better. So they're trying to get to the best possible set of rules. But even that best possible set of rules is going to result in some weird stuff happening that isn't really what they intended, and they might not even view as good. But deal with it a little bit.
100%, man. This is the way of the beast. And back to Upo's point, don't get caught up on one play in a game. Look at the play, look for trends in the game, look for items within the game that fit together on a collection of plays. That has more weight than just simply cherry picking out one particular play and saying this was everything. In a game with 130 plays, it's less than 1% of the plays in a game when you're doing that. That's not a correct way of looking at the sport.
Holy Hand Grenade, thank you for the member message over on Brandon's side. Jake, so hard trying to rebuttal your points, B. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean,
I went in with materials, Yeah, I went in with materials, Brendan, and I wasn't going to bring out. I called it my nuclear option last night when I was letting our host. And I go, here's some of the images I want you to use. If Jake was magnanimous and said, hey, we lost it, we're going to face you guys again, we're going to get you again. I think we're still the better team. I wouldn't have said boo about it, but he went right into the officiating. He went right into it. So it's like, all right, allow me to retort. Let me go after it here a little bit. Let's get into the depths of this a little bit, shall we? Mm-hmm. So, he kind of broke the glass. I had to push the button.
Mm-hmm. Wu-Tang, thank you for the $4.99. Rams sought it a first down they didn't earn and have an interception erased by the refs. Also, Rams, we lost the game because 2 plays were called by rules. Yeah, I wasn't shocked that the Ernest Jones interception got overturned, but it was called an interception. So I'm not so sure it should have been. Like, that was very close. You can't tell me that was definitive at the very least.
Definitive is the word. And that's the problem. And I still don't know what is a effing catch, Brendan. I don't say this from it just cost us. I say this going back, remember a couple years ago with the Jackson Smith-Njigba catch on the Cowboys in the back of the end zone that got overruled in the same spirit of it. To me, it always came down to, does the guy control the ball? And it's become a little bit on this, like, does the ball move? Well, is he got it in control? Is it moving because he's controlling? To me, Ernest Jones's hands went like this. It wasn't because the ball forced his hands to go like this. It's he's catching, and this is the natural act of catching the ball. But they overturned it. And to Wu-Tang's point, there was a catch that seemed like it was about a half yard short of the first down that they gave him the first down on, which was also kind of a strange spot too.
Yeah, I think I remember that one. I'm not unhappy about them overturning it, though, because the way that game ended, I wouldn't give that up for anything. To have Darnold go down like that and redeem himself, that would have been better than just moving the ball 20 yards and kicking a field goal to win, I think.
Resiliency of spirit, perseverance of spirit is the stuff champions are made of, Brendan. And it's the part, the Rams with all the complaining about these 2 particular plays, like you overcome. Something happens not in your favor, you overcome. Sam Darnold, you throw 2 interceptions, you overcome. You can say what you will about Sam and where you want to put him on the pecking order of things, but the guy's resilient and he's absolutely unflappable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And again, that's coming through at the end of close games is going to be worth more than any number of 500-yard and 6 touchdown games that he could have.
100%.
Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. AD was offsides. I wouldn't lie to you. Yeah,
I feel you. I believe you, man. I believe you.
Yeah, I remember there was like a conspiracy in Super Bowl 42 that the referees were messing with the clock on the Giants game-winning touchdown drive. The one against the undefeated Patriots. And I remember there was like this, like it was, you had like this community of Patriot truthers, and they were posting on some message boards I was going on back at the time. And I've never heard anybody talk about that since. So I think people were just messing around, but I don't know. Sometimes these guys get such a good jump. They look like they must be offsides, but they're technically not because it's when the ball moves. I have noticed that before.
Yeah. No, I do too. I think with Femi too, he's talking about the old thing where sometimes these defensive linemen will line up offsides, where the helmet's over the line and refs just let him get away with it. And it's a pretty big advantage to be able to do that. I think that's what he's referencing here. But yeah, it's sometimes hard. Some of these guys are masters with the jumping the snap and getting on. Von Miller was great about that. Just being able to time it perfectly.
John Naylor, thank you for the $9.99. Brando was on fire during the NFC West roundtable, breaking through the Rams copium, citing factor, rule book, and visual evidence like a frame-by-frame Zapruder back into the left that had C-Bot taking note.
Yeah, our host was loving it. The Buffalo Bill host we had in the house, Ebot, he was absolutely just pickled watching us go at it. And I wanted to build my case. I didn't want to do ad hominem attacks. I didn't want to do straw man attacks. I want to say, look, there's nothing personal within this, but let's go at the actual evidence and let's go at actually what you're trying to say, because you're saying it like, oh, there's no doubt that was a bad call in the play where your lineman is a yard and a half in the end zone. And when I show you the shot, I show you the film and he's not being pushed and he's just walking a yard and a half into that end zone. It's kind of hard to be able to say it another way. You kind of thought that maybe in the moment, but I got the all 22 shot literally showing Jaron Reed being pushed backwards, and there's nothing you can say about it at that point. And same thing's true with the 2-point conversion rule book. That's why he was playing the what about game. What about if they'd done this? What if they had done this? Well, what if it was what just happened? How does the rule book say that it's supposed to go down? He didn't want to stay on that point because he knew he had no leg to stand on if he had to stay on that point.
Yeah. It's I've seen. I obviously I'm not on Roundtable, but I've seen these points being made by Rams fans on social media all over the place. So I know what they're saying, and it's gotten old because again, the game was 6 days ago now. Like I understand the day after you're angry. I get that totally. Like again, that game may have blown their season, but we're way past that game being over now.
I saw the same thing online. It wasn't really about me going to Jake with this. It was just that Jake was representing a lot of what we were getting from Rams fans, which was that rather than giving credit for a big win on our part and doing what we did, that they're coming through with these big old excuses as to why, we were gifted essentially the victory in a game that we took. We went out there and drove that final drive for a touchdown overtime. We went for 2 when you didn't have the balls to do so. But you don't want to give us credit for that. You want to go back and find these piddly-ante excuses that don't add up to jack squat. And so it got to me on that point when I got to my Monday show, and I'd already seen it in my chat from a bunch of Rams fans coming to my house. I'd already seen a bunch of it in my chat on the Seahawks weekly roundup I did on Monday. I kind of hit a little bit of breaking point with it, where I'm like, no, not especially when you're going to come at us. As you've been for this last 10 years, the least penalized team in the NFL, by the way. Who's been the second most penalized team during that period?
Is it? Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Really?
it was last year I flashed the stat. It was, I don't know if it's held up from 17 to 05, but from the 10-year period I believe it was from 14 to 2024, only the Raiders had more penalties called on them than the Seattle Seahawks. So it's like,
I guess most of that's Carroll. Right? Okay. That kind of makes sense. I guess we did get a lot of penalties under Carroll. Macdonald's cleaning up a little bit, so that makes sense. Now
Macdonald's doing better. Macdonald's definitely doing better, and some of this comes from the Carroll. He's not a detailed driven guy where it's going to be to the intricacies of doing the technique perfect. He's going to be more of just go out and play fast and free and loose, and we'll take the price of doing business on that. So there's a little bit of that, but at the same point in time, you're the least penalized team in this given period. We're almost the most penalized team in this period, and you're out there bitching and moaning about officials. Like just kind of the audacity, right?
Yeah.
Like the audacity a little bit for somebody that's on that other rung. It just kind of, it does get to a point of that where you're like, I don't, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's it for all the donations. Thank you, everybody. If there are any more before the end of the show, we will get to them in due time. But before we move on to this Panthers game, I do want to give a shout out to Sleeper. Could you real quickly, Brandon, just give the good people the rundown on Sleeper while I try to set this up?
Absolutely, folks. We are sponsored by the Sleeper app. It's the best sports app running in the game today. It's an app that's got, for my money, the best amount of kind of picks that you can go through to build up your ticket in the way that you want to build it. You got basketball, you got football, you think you know sports, put that knowledge to the test, go earn yourself some money today. And when you use our code, either NEST, Nest, or SBN for Brendan, either of those two codes, we're having a code off here, you will get 100% match up to your first $100. So $100 from me to you and Brendan, and you support the channel at the same point in time. There's also a freebie $20 entry where just creating a login, they'll put a $20 deposit into your account just like that. So that's $120 from us to you, and you support the channel at the same point in time. Please do see their site for details. Terms and conditions do apply.
Right. So I have my ticket for this week up on the screen here, looking just at the Seahawks Panthers game. I have Sam Darnold with over 2 or over 1.5. So 2 or more passing touchdowns. He needs 4 more this season to hit his escalator in his contract for another $500,000. So he's going to be throwing it at the 1 yard line. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
K9 over 55.5. He had one of the best games of his career last week, and I think we're going to start featuring him heavily as we try to make sure that we get these wins. JSN, and anytime touchdown. I think that he is going to really be locked in here. Been a little bit of tough sledding for him, especially in some of these first quarters lately. And I think he's going to be pretty motivated to get back on track here. And I also got Jatavion Sanders, tight end for the Panthers, over 13.5. Feels like one decent play for him, and he's going to do that. Feels like one that you can kind of pick off nice and easy. So that is my ticket. It goes 6.81x. So $10 ticket goes to 68.1. Use the promo code SBN or NEST. I also have that up here. 100% match up to $100. And you also get that free $20 bet that Brandon just talked about. So get on over to Sleeper. Go have some fun with sports this year. Do it for the people. And don't forget that we sent you there.
Hell yeah. Brandon's always got a soft spot for Jatavion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he changed. Did he change his name to Tavion? He got rid of the Ja, I think. I
Did
know
he?
some places don't honor it, but I think some people do. It's like some people still call him Tariq Woolen, but it's Reek.
Those players love to change their name when they become pros, man. They love to just move it to something else. Give me 1 sec here. I'll be right back, Brendan.
Yeah, I think some. Yeah, I'd say it's because they want you to buy another jersey, but it's usually the first name they change, so you wouldn't buy a new jersey. Like that's why a lot of people thought that Kobe changed his jersey from 8 to 24 back in the day. He wanted everyone to have to buy new Kobe jerseys. All right, we will be right back, guys, and we will be opening things up on this Panthers game. I know we've gotten really deep into the show and haven't even mentioned the Panthers game yet, but that's because we got a lot of generous donations. I want to thank everybody once again for that. We will get back to any donations before the end of the show, so don't worry about missing out or anything like that. But we do want to get started on this Panthers game, so once Brandon gets back, we will open up on that. But while we're here, I guess there's this one donation that we got in while we were in the middle of the Sleeper ad read. Holy hand grenade, thank you for the $2. The cracks are starting for McVay to leave LA. Well, I'm interested in Brandon's perspective on this, but I think it's dependent on them being able to get a quarterback that McVay likes after Stafford leaves, which could be very soon. I know he's playing very well this year, but he is old. He is beat up. Okay, here we go.
I'm back.
All right. So I was just, we got this donation during the Sleeper read from Holy Hand Grenade. The cracks are starting for McVay to leave LA. I thought we'd take it real quick while I was waiting, just to say that I think it depends on whether or not he can find a good replacement for Stafford in the next year or two.
Yeah, and then when Stafford really retires, he seems pretty well connected to staying there, but I think the quarterback position is going to be a big driver for that offense, and having a guy that can be a prime caller, and they've got those 2 first-round picks this offseason. If Stafford retired, they might just pivot right to Burrow. Don't think he's retiring anytime soon if they're able to go and do that. But look, guys, go 10 years in a given place. That's about what you get as a head coach. And sometimes after 10 years, it's very hard to then maintain after that, even if you had a tremendous amount of success. But with that said, I mean, he's still getting the buy-in from these guys. He's still doing a good job of developing talent. That's still maybe the best team in the NFL when it's all said and done on this. I mean, they're going to still be very dangerous in the playoffs. So potentially, but I think there's still a lot of good that they've got to work off of there too.
Yeah, I mean, we know more or less that after the 2020 season, he basically stormed into the GM's office and was like, "You got to get this Jared Goff guy out of here. Will never win with this loser. Give me a real quarterback, please." And Jared Goff's not a bad quarterback, so there is a pretty high standard that McVay feels like he needs to do what he needs to do. So if they can't find that caliber of a quarterback, and it's hard to find that caliber of a quarterback, he could just be like, you know what? I can make way more money for way less work working for the Amazon crew.
It's possible. I think you're right about the quarterback being the important part here. I don't think it's anything to the rest of the team. It's just, do I have my QB that can execute the offense the way I want to execute? And if I don't have a pathway to that, then that is definitely going to be a driver there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know we're pretty deep into the show and we haven't really touched these Carolina Panthers yet. So let's get into it here. Just to talk about them as an opponent. This is going to be hard because they're 8-7, pretty good team, right? They might win the division. They got a good shot at winning the division, but I don't really know what they do well. And I was looking at the numbers that you sent me last night, and we're going to go ahead and put this one up here. Let's, do you want to start with offense or defense?
Let's go with their offense.
Right. But I look at these numbers and I'm like, what are they actually good at? And it's hard to find an answer, if I'm being honest.
I think it is. In general terms, with this offense, it's one that actually is well suited for us. I think that if we're talking about what a type of team that's going to be situated to be dangerous against us on the surface with the Panthers, you go, well, they run the ball. Therefore, that's going to be a bit of an issue. But when it comes to running the ball, I think that 13th or middle of the road. They're maybe not as dynamic as you might think, having both Chubb Hubbard and Rico Dowdle with the couple games he had this year, where you're like, ooh, they got a thunder and lightning, and it's really going to be tough. Now, it's not going to be easy, but it's not necessarily that they're dominant as a run-based team. And the thing that stands out to me in how they run the ball, Brendan, is that there's so many 3 wide receiver sets in this offense. They run the second highest empty usage in the entire sport with Bryce. So you think about it with our defense that loves to sit in nickel, you're kind of walking into the jaws of the beast a little bit with this from a Hawk perspective and how you stylistically run your offense, because we're already going to have the light box. We're used to dealing with like lighter boxes in the run game because that's what they do. They spread you out, then they're going to try to run you. We can kind of handle that pretty well. I think that what makes them tough with Bryce is that Bryce does that thing that, so many quarterbacks can't seem to kind of find that right line on, which is he's got the ability to improv. He's got the ability to get off script. Does he do it too much, right? Is it that he's leaning on that over and over again and he's always looking to pull that lever? Or does he kind of bring it in at select times and then work on script on other times? And that's why I think you're seeing some of this data, like for instance, 12th and 2.81 seconds to throw, where you go on the surface of it. Here's a guy that should be out there scrambling around and maybe holding the ball a little bit longer. But because there's some of those scripted quick throws built within and based within this offense too, it does provide a bit of a balance that you have to face defensively on not being able to lean one way or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, first of all, I think that Panthers team has a pretty nice offensive line. And then I'm looking at their pressure rate, and it's like, maybe not, because they don't run the ball that well either. Their running game is very overrated. So I'm looking at that offensive line, and individually, I like the pieces. They got Taylor Moton at right tackle. He's been good for a long time. They got Damian Lewis, our old player, who's been good for them. I know he's been hurt, but Robert Hunt, the Miami guy, the guy they got from the Dolphins. But it's not really coming together in a way that feels like it's really helping them win all that much. Like, they give up pressure like crazy, and teams are not even really blitzing them that much. They don't use play action. They don't get good yak. Like the one thing that stands out here would be their average target separation. And again, how much is that helping them? They have a well below average drop back EPA on the season.
They do. And there's a lot of their offense built within throwing sort of contested catch balls to Teterow and McMillan. So he can create separation, but there's a lot of those in there too, based within. So they don't have a real bread and butter to the offense. It's one that's been a bit up and down at times. Getting McMillan back was big for them last week. That definitely helps their offense out in a major, major way. And them able to run inside is going to be a bit of the challenge there, where, of course, teams that are more running to the outside are the ones we're going to probably be better at dealing with, because it gives more of our time for our guys to rally up to the ball. Whereas getting downhill in a little bit of the lighter boxes can, sometimes be a little bit of an issue, especially just keeping the consistent runs down, the 3 yards, the 4 yards, that type of stuff like the Rams were doing last week. But I think it's a well-situated offense for us to take on. You go to empty, we're not going to have any problem with that. We've got the personnel to be able to deal with empty. You want to go 3 wide receiver set? That's walking into what we want you to do from a defensive standpoint. So it's going to be less about the Panthers dictating terms to our defense and more of our defense able to operate from where they are at their strongest, schematically speaking. And I think that's going to make this a long day, not a long day, but it's going to make it a tough day overall for this Panthers offense. I think that they do find some success out there against the defense just because they're playing better and Bryce is playing better and he makes some nice throws down the field. He's got some things he can do they can make it hard on you. But that being said, I think to your point on this, you look at them, you go, they don't have something they can just kind of hang their hat on to really be able to carry them through a day like this.
Right. Like other than McMillan, who, by the way, did not practice today. So there is a little bit of a possibility here that they don't even have that. I think that they will. I think they're probably like pacing him a little bit at the end of the year because he isn't 100%, but worth monitoring. But other than that, man, they got, I think, Jalen Coker, a Holy Cross grad. I remember him in the draft a couple years ago, and they got some other relative no-name guy. They don't really have a lot going on there. I talked about Jatavion Sanders. He's all right, but there's nothing super exciting there. And honestly, like I said, their run game is very overrated. Rico Dowdle ran all over the Cowboys back when everybody was, and I think people are still remembering that game, but he's just kind of another decent player at this point.
He has. I mean, he kind of caught lightning in a bottle for that little bit of a short time period, and he's been able to, cook it up since then. Xavier Legette's another guy they took in the second round a couple of years ago who just hasn't developed. He's got some hand drops issues at times out there. You're right about Sanders. I think he's got like 300 yards receiving total for the year as their main tight end. There's not a lot of dynamicism on this offense right now. They're definitely they're in a transitionatory state of needing to get another playmaker there to work around McMillan. It speaks to the fact that they've got this team playing well as they are right now, that they still obviously need more parts, but Canales has this team playing really well and potentially taking this division at this point. So give them props there. And they're also, I think, a good indicator of why having a solid offensive line as you build it, not really having any major weak links necessarily in offensive line like they don't, is how that can kind of carry you through a little bit offensively speaking too.
Right. I think we both agree that it was a mistake to blitz the Rams so much. Would you blitz this week against Bryce Young?
Probably not. No. I think I would probably be more in let's see if the front four can generate some pressure. Mix it in there here and there. I certainly would give him a lot of stacked boxes. I'd give him a lot of simulated looking pressures, but I wouldn't give him necessarily a lot of blitzes on the back of it. I just want to make him look at it all day long and have to process up at the line of scrimmage all day long. Because he's a guy that I think still so young in his career that's going to give him a little bit of an extra layer to deal with that makes his job harder to execute.
Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, they probably will not have Robert Hunt back. He got activated off IR, but it's probably going to be a couple weeks. That's probably a playoff move.
They've got Ekawanda, the left tackle, listed as questionable too.
Really? Has he been good? I know we both kind of had questions about him coming out of college. I haven't kept up with him.
He's a good run blocker. I don't think he's don't think that he's necessarily a good pass protector. Or he's maybe average pass protector wise.
The classic.
Checking this to make sure I'm right. Yeah, so 73 run blocking grade, 65 pass blocking grade. He's given up 5 sacks this year.
Yeah, I know a lot of Seahawks fans hate PFF grades, but they do actually, I think, most of the time do a good job. Sometimes things just don't make any sense. Like they'll give Ernest Jones a 40 in a game where Seattle's defense allowed like 3 points and 2 yards a carry. Like that doesn't make any sense. But I think the offensive line, they do a decent job. I
agree. Yeah, I think they do. I think this, and again, no weak links, which is one of the major parts about building a good offensive line is to not have any major weak links. So you have to earn your day at the office here with them.
Yeah. To speak broadly for a second here, because neither of us liked Bryce Young at all coming out of college. Do you feel like he's been better than you expected in the NFL so far? It's a tough one. I know. It's like he's all right, but I definitely wouldn't want to build my franchise around him. It's really hard to pinpoint.
I think he's moderately better maybe than I thought he would be. But he still is a lot closer to what I thought he would be than what so many out there were saying, which is that he's Patrick Mahomes minus 4 inches. I think he's been much more proven to be a guy that shouldn't have been taken number 1 overall than he is Mahomes minus 4 inches. Yeah. I think Caleb Williams has done more as a number 1 overall pick to earn that status on that and to do what he's done, right? So I think, coming into this year wasn't good. This is now his 3rd year, so he's had some time. And even in this quote-unquote breakout year, Brendan, he's only averaging 6.4 yards per attempt, 21 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He's got a 89 quarterback rating. I think by year 3, the Carolina Panthers would have said that we wish we had a little bit more productivity from him than that, or a lot more productivity from that, taking him number 1 overall, giving up, I think they gave up a first-round pick extra to get up there and go get him.
Yeah, they gave up the pick that turned into Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
As well. So,
yeah. And I mean, Caleb is more inaccurate than he is. He does a better job, 63.5%, but still even at 63.5%, it's like, it's not a great completion percentage here. And that's coming on the heels of his first 2 years being 59.8 and 60.09%. I think that there's still leaves a lot wanting, and if he was taken in maybe like late first or second round, you'd look at him maybe a little bit different, but you're taking number 1 overall pick like that, you're expected to be a difference maker talent-wise, and I don't think that we've seen that from him.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. So Panthers offense, really not a lot going on here. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. The one mitigating factor is it's in Carolina. The Panthers have seemed to have been a little bit of a better team at home than on the road. More so, I would say, on defense than offense, but offense as well. they seem like a team that has a genuine home field advantage that a lot of teams do not have.
Indeed. And let's face it, this is going to be a team that's going to have their fans connected in this process this upcoming week as far as volume of voice and having guys show up in the stadium, because they're going for this division now. They're going to kind of solidify this thing down. So there's something at stake for them. We're going to get a hungry team, and you're right about them playing better at home. 5-2 home record versus 3-5 away. So you are getting a bit of a different team with them at home. And this is a team that took down the Rams at home a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So no easy day at the office. Limit the big play, Brendan. I mean, offensively speaking to me, Bryce wants to take his shots down the field. It's another part where I feel like our defense is well suited up against this Panther offense, because we are a defense which naturally, stylistically protects against the deep ball in general terms. So him trying to attack 5-6 times over the course of the game with some of those bigger shots down the field, we can make him be punished for doing that. Because again, you're going into the jaws of the defense, the teeth of the defense when you're going to do that against the Seattle Seahawks team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing worth noting, though, and this is an interesting wrinkle. I actually have made a video about this, and I wrote an article about it. The Panthers actually have very little at stake this weekend, because the division title is overwhelmingly likely to be decided in Week 18 when they play Tampa, and that's regardless of what happens against Seattle. So especially if Tampa beats Miami, which is very likely, and whatever Tampa Bay is doing right now, I know that they've been awful, but Miami's starting Quinn Ewers. Like, give me a break. At a certain point here. Yeah. As long as Tampa wins that game, the Panthers winning or losing against Seattle actually means nothing for them. It's literally a preseason game, and everything comes down to the Week 18 game. So I would expect anybody who is like bruised or has bumps and bruises to sit. Anybody who gets bumped or bruised during the game probably gets put in street clothes. And, if I'm a player, I'm a human, right? My heart might not really be in it when I'm thinking about the game next week.
Yeah, I think that's a good point on your part, especially when we're talking about Teteroa McMillan or Ike Ikwanu not playing in this game, because I would feel like if I'm from the Panthers standpoint, I definitely wouldn't be playing those guys if this is the case and how you've just portrayed it, being that if there's no point to us getting this win, why wouldn't you rest some of those guys at that point? So that's a good point, and maybe an underrated storyline coming into this game.
Yeah, if I'm Dave, if I'm Canales, I'm playing it very safe this week, because how rare is it that you get the opportunity to basically have a preseason game before the biggest game of the year? How often does that happen? And it's happened. It's fallen in your lap. You got to jump on it.
Well, yeah, not to mention you're not getting the first round bye, so this is kind of your opportunity to sort of get a little bit of a potential bye for certain players you want to rest in that way, to get them as fresh as you possibly can for that game. I think there's a very sound strategy approach here from Canales' standpoint, not just us being Hawk fans would love to see them sit guys, but also like if there's nothing there for you to get the win on that, but just risking players that you're not going to have for the next week for the game you're going to need, that doesn't seem to be very smart coaching to me.
Yeah, like imagine if this Panthers team in the last 2 months of the year beats the Packers, beats the Rams, and beats the Seahawks, but they still don't make the playoffs because they lose in Week 18 to Tampa. Like, that would be crushing. They'd be sitting there all offseason thinking, man, we might have been able to go on a Super Bowl run, and now it's over. So you're thinking about that game 100%.
100%. I think it's a good point, and maybe that will swing in factor huge there, because you're absolutely right about the Miami falling to Tampa Bay. They're going to lose by easily 21 points potentially in that game.
Yeah, some people were trying to kind of hype it up, saying, hey, Miami's got a winning record over the last 2 months, and Tampa Bay's 2-6. But it's like, it's Quinn Ewers. Give me a break.
Yeah, and I get it. The Panthers have not been playing good. They've had some bad losses, Falcons, Saints, on there. But as well in that span, they've also had to play the Patriots, the Bills, the Rams, the Panthers, So there's been some pretty legitimate foes that the Tampa Bay, they've had a fairly tough schedule overall as been Tampa Bay this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have. And don't get me wrong, I think they're a pretty bad team right now, but they're going to beat Miami. And I don't know if Miami's even trying to win right now. They're probably not.
I wouldn't think that they are. They've seemed like they've been kind of recently. I know they've done well overall in the last, month or whatever.
They
kind of
got embarrassed against Pittsburgh, and then they got blown out by Cincinnati. It's like not hard to defend.
Yeah. Right. And it's like where their quote unquote run was coming back with Miami, where they're like coming to life, was they beat the Saints, they beat the Jets, they beat the Commanders. Like that, and the Bills were also a team that they got, but I mean, that's division. Those games are weird. But it's been mainly done off the back of, kind of having some wins against some really bad teams, the worst in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we go over to the Panthers defense here. And once again, I'm looking at this and I find myself looking for something that they're actually good at. And they have good players, right? Derek Brown, they got Jaycee Horn. Mike Jackson is nice. I like their safeties, but in terms of them actually doing something well, I'm really not feeling it based off any of these numbers. So what do you think of this group on defense?
Yeah, I mean, they're not efficient at stopping the run. They're not efficient at stopping the pass. You can kind of go wherever you want. They're 32nd in pressure rate, so they very much struggle to create any kind of pressure at all. And since they don't really highly blitz, they can't really manufacture the pressure either. They are a team that is going to run with pretty neutral fronts for the most part. You're not going to get very many stack boxes. They're only middle of the road when it comes to light boxes. So, even that, they can't really stylistically kind of overcome by that methodology of approach. They kind of just line their players up there to go and get after it. And the players either get the job done or they don't. Teams are rushing at 28th as far as their percentage run inside. So teams are rushing inside heavily, and that's where they're attacking. Which is kind of surprising because you do have a Derek Brown in there who still plays, having kind of a career resurgence this season and who's playing pretty good, strong football. But there's just a feeling that you can get after them inside here as far as the way you see teams attack in that way. They don't have a lot they throw at you from the linebacker position either. I will say Nick Scorton, watching the tape last week against Tampa Bay, he is coming alive. That guy is becoming a problem off the edge, problem in the run, problem as a pass rusher. He is really realizing some of the potential that you saw from a Texas A&M, where you didn't have the production, but you could see that the guy and the way he moved and how he was built could be successful at the NFL level. That pick's looking really good for them. I think that they've got some strength in the secondary at the cornerback position. Mike Jackson doing a really good job out there this year, 3 interceptions, playing good football for them. And then Jaycee Horn's probably one of your better cornerbacks in the sport. Safety, they're Trevor Mooring's solid, unspectacular, but solid. So they're kind of middle of the road on safeties, I'd say, but good corners. But that's really only true strength. Derek Brown, Scorton. I don't know if there's a lot there after you get past that spot with this football team.
Yeah, Scorton, like you said, it's a recent thing. I think he's got like 2.5 sacks on the season. This is not some rookie of the year campaign he's putting together defensively. No. But you've got, let's see here, DJ Wanham, I think, is one of their edge rushers as well. I've never heard of that guy before. They have Trevin Wallace. They've also got a Priestley.
That's the Kentucky kid we looked at. Remember we scouted him.
Yeah, it is a very toothless pass rush. Derek Brown has 5 sacks. No, Scourton has 3.5. A'Shawn Robinson, I think he used to be a nose tackle for the Rams or something, if I recall. Mm-hmm. Right. 2.5, and then everyone else has either 1 or 2 or 1.5 or a half. It's kind of like a couple of these pass rush units we've talked about in recent weeks are kind of the same, but they're actually getting good pressure from a bunch of different players. This team gets like bad pressure from a bunch of different players. So it is probably the worst pass rush in football. The Scourton element is real. Like I would take this pass rush unit over San Fran right now, because San Fran is still kind of coasting over what Bosa gave them early, whereas the Panthers are kind of improving a little bit as the year goes on.
I buy that. I buy what you're selling there. And yeah, I think it's, you look at the secondary, there's a lot of guys that, we did scout who we just kind of were like, just kind of a day 3 guy. Latham Ransom out of Ohio State. I know he's not their main safety, but the guy's got 300 snaps. He's out there. They got him in personnel packages, I guess as much to stop the run, but from the safety position, but it's like that guy can be exposed as in coverage. Trevin Wallace was kind of a 5th round kind of inside linebacker as you scouted him, and like a little undersized. Chow Smith-Wade, their nickel back out of Washington State, another guy that we looked a lot at. It's kind of just a guy that you kick in there in a nickel that'll be just kind of a guy that'll, he'll give up some plays, make a play here, make a play there, but certainly not a difference maker out there. So they're kind of getting by with the cobble it approach here a bit, defensively speaking, right now.
Right. And as for their run defense, you list 25th in rush EPA, which is very bad. To be clear, you want to be the lower numbers are good there, right? You want to be like first. So they've got Derek Brown, who might be an all-pro level defensive tackle this year. And despite him playing really well, and he did come into the league as basically a nose tackle, if I recall correctly, they still can't stop the run. That's pretty bad. That's something you should be taking advantage of right now.
150%. You got to be good at something, right, Brendan? Like if you're gonna be bad one place, be good somewhere. Pick some spot that you actually can go out there and find that, again, come back to hang your hat on and then build off it from there. But this just feels like a Carolina Panther team that's just a little bit ahead of schedule, and that just still needs some more bodies. They need another playmaker offensively on the outside. Xavier Legette's lack of progress has really opened that door up. And then defensively, you just need to get a more dynamic on the front seven, I think, in general. Pass rush and how you stop the run. You got some good players, but it's more of got two players and then a lot of just kind of get by guys.
Yeah, and on a fundamental level, you would say that the strongest part of this defense in terms of a group is the secondary or cornerback, because you've got Jaycee Horn, who's been really good. I think he made the Pro Bowl again this year, and Mike Jackson, who's been good for them as well. Yet 22nd rank in most yards on average separation of routes. That's the bad side, right? That's like not what you want.
No,
that's not good.
Yeah, even that's not on the good side of it. So they're not getting pressure and they're not stopping the run is kind of the bottom line. And they do have a secondary that's been opportunistic with, to your point, Jaycee Horn and Mike, and they've got a couple picks and interceptions. But the baseline and the bottom line here is still holding to be true, that you can go after them in every way. You should be able to run the ball. You should be able to pass the ball. I think because they don't blitz, I don't know if there'll be as much of the deep stuff that we like to work in. It might be a little bit more of you need to just sort of kind of peck away a little bit at this defense as far as taking what they give you. But with that said, there's a lot of opportunities with this defense to get after them.
Yeah, I do notice, I guess nobody runs on the inside against them. Maybe that is the Derek Brown effect. All these teams like to run to the outside on them. So, I mean, good opportunity.
No, they're inside 28, 20. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes. Sorry. Correct.
Yeah, so you're running to the outside on them. So that could be good for Kubiak's desired running offense. That's certainly what he wants to do. So that could be interesting. I like that.
Yeah, that would definitely have outside zone. Man, that's the bread and butter outside zone. So Walker to have a good day. You had him on your picks, I think. And that stat alone would seem to point to utilization of Walker to the edges a little bit more in this game, especially, I would think.
Yeah, so I guess the big question here is, and I don't know if we got to the bottom of this, how are the Panthers good? How are they 8-7 when they don't do anything well? Do they have the greatest special teams unit in NFL history? It defies understanding in some ways that this team is currently, I think, a slight favorite to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you play in a division that's not a very strong division, first off. I think you've had a schedule that's had some easier foes upon it. Cowboys, Jets, Falcons in there twice, right? Saints in there twice, though they lost to the Saints twice, which is pretty hilarious, Brendan. Twice you lost to the Saints. So there's some easier parts here on the schedule. I think that there's also a lot of inconsistency to this team, which is what we get to the bottom line on both these stats on either side, where I think that there's certain games where Bryce Young goes out there and he's performed really well. And he's giving you the view of a little bit more closer akin to why he was the number one overall pick. But then he gives you those games on the other side of it where he doesn't look like a third round pick. And I think that you do get a little bit of that up and down nature from his position and how he plays. I think how you've run the ball at times has not always been consistent, and that you have those dominant points with Rico Dowdle through the middle part of the year, but there's a lot of other times there where you're not getting a lot done in running the ball. Chuba Hubbard's is averaging less than 4 yards a carry right now, to my point. So I think that it's been a little bit of, that's why this team's where it's at, is it's just their story is not the same every week. It's just wildly a little bit different. Kind of almost doesn't matter the opponent they play in that wild difference. And that's the part that's scary for us, is that even strong opponents, they might come out there and give you that good game. And you don't know. It's a little bit of the box of chocolates type of team. You never know what you're going to get. And maybe that's a little bit of what we kind of got to anticipate here with them this week.
Yeah. And I think there is some stuff to be concerned about, especially because, this team just spent everything they had on that Rams game. They spent everything they had. They basically took the Colts game off the couple days before to get ready for it, it felt like. And then they needed every little bit to win. And I know they've had basically the mini bye week, but I do think there's some concern here that they show up in Carolina and they come out flat. Like that will not surprise me if that happens on Sunday.
It's one where I really do think it's maybe a possibility, but I also think I'm a little bit more feeling like if this game was week 11 or 10 of the season, I might feel a little bit like that. With the Seattle Seahawks coming off the win as big as it is, but then to know that you just need 2 more wins to get that home field advantage, to get that week off, to get all of that set up, and that you're this close, you're right there on the precipice. I feel like that's got to be a bit of a driving force for this team in this game, and that it's also a team in the Panthers. They're not third in the division here with this fluctuation of performance. They're first place with this fluctuation of performance, and so maybe those factors can be enough to keep this team connected in on this game, especially with, like you say, a little bit of a mini bye to get the body a little fresher, get the body a little bit ready to back around to getting ready to go, especially with all those plays that they had to play defensively on their back.
Right. Right. Okay. So, Panthers special team unit, just on a brief search, seems okay, but kind of forgettable. Certainly not as good as ours. And I mean, our special teams unit was a big factor in us winning that game on Thursday. So if it has to bail us out again, then so be it. But it seems like a good game for it to maybe happen.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Etienne's okay as far as a punt returner. He's not as good as a kick returner. Hubbard's a little bit better as a kick returner, but they're not. You've got the advantage there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Who's their kicker these days?
Ryan Fitzgerald.
Okay.
23 of 27, 85% field goal percentage. 2 of 4 from 50 yards out. So not necessarily a super big leg kicker guy. Just kind of all of it's kind of middle of the road with them when it comes to their special teams.
All right. So I think that is pretty much all there is to say about that game. It's a very flawed Panthers team, but they seem to get it done in crunch time, and that's why they're here, potentially making the playoffs. And we will get to a prediction real quick, though. I am Blatancy. Thank you for the $2 Canadian. Merry Christmas, Dad.
Thank you. I am. Merry Christmas.
I mean, I hope you're not my son, or it's going to cost me way more than $2. But thank you.
Yeah, that dono's got me a little nervous here. Been waiting for years for that potential knock at the door.
Yeah, that's why you got to keep moving. That's why you got to change your name, and they still find you somehow.
Yep, they do. They do.
All right. Let's see here. Hilltop Shack. Thank you for the $4.99. Go Hawks! What an amazing win. We clinched the playoffs. These last few games are confusing somewhat to me. Rams and 49ers have to lose out for us to get number one. No. If we win out, we get the number one seed. That's like 85% of what you need to know right now. The Seahawks need to win their last 2 games, and they get the number one seed. If they don't, then they don't.
Yeah, it just comes down to that, Hilltop. I mean, we can go through the interrelation of this team losing, that team, but it just kind of comes down to just win out. You've got the number one bye. Let's just simplify it down the line. That 2 more wins, 2 winnable games. I'll beat the Niners. That's a weakened Niner team. I'll beat this Panthers. It's not, one of the top teams in the NFL. So just win out, you get out.
Right. And if we don't get the 1 seed, it's almost certainly going to be either the 5 seed or the 6 seed, probably the 5. But there is some room for things to move around. I don't believe it's possible for us to fall below Green Bay or Detroit at this point. So we're not going to get to 7. Mm-hmm. And while it's theoretically possible, I'm having a really hard time thinking the Bears are going to be the 1 seed. So I really think it's 1 seed, 5 seed, or 6 seed with no other realistic possibilities.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can't ask for much better than that. Everything's in front of you. You control it. And look, I know the 49ers are good. I know they're winning. But to me, if you can't win that Week 18 game where they have no pass rush and they got no Fred Warner, Ayuk's out. Not that they ever really had him this year, but he was obviously a part of the plan. I don't know. To me, that will definitely be a moment where I'm like, yeah, okay, I think I know. I don't know if we can't beat the team in this state, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to this year with this team. So I'm expecting a win there. I'll put it to you that way as of right now.
I'm as well. If you're the team this year that you want to be, then you got to get that win. That's a Niner team, no matter what they've done. It's too weak. You left off Bosa on that list too. No Bosa in as well. Between Warner and Bosa, those are 2 guys that have had your number when you play the Niners over those last 5-6 years. So those guys being out with that 49er team missing that pass rush, the offense is going to be still dangerous with it, but you should be at least able to keep step for step with that offense. And so I agree. We're going to learn a lot about that team and where they're at that point, especially we get this win and set the stage in that way to determine, oh, no, you're a contender right now. It's not a year out. It's not if everything just works out well for you in the playoffs and all the breaks break in your favor, but it's, hey, no, you're that good. You don't need all the breaks and you can go take this thing.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, thank you for the $5. There were a few snaps that Mills actually looked good against the run. Maybe against the Rams. Against the Colts, I thought he was getting bullied against the run personally.
Yeah, the first game of the Colts wasn't good. There was a couple of good reps out there in this game. He's only getting about 7 snaps a game out there, Jordan. So it is the definition of solid small sample size. But look, it was a step forward against the Rams. In that, you actually saw him making play. He had one play where he was held on a play on a throw where that's part of them letting the guys play. But he absolutely got held as he got past the guy on a pass rush. So flashed a little bit. More to build on there. If you can get him in on the rotation to keep these guys fresh on the inside, when it's good going on the edge. We got 4 true bodies we can rotate on the edge. Why not have 4 true bodies you can rotate to the inside to keep all those guys rolling at their maximum as we get into the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just can't imagine he's going to be a significant part of the team this year. Hard for me to buy. We're getting such good play out of Big Cat and Murphy, and I don't want to mess with that, especially in these really important games. Let Mills play at the end of blowouts, but I don't need him in the playoffs.
I think the plan is going to be try to get him acclimated in. So I get where you're coming from on it, but I think that too they've put a lot of snaps on Murphy and Williams this year as the year's gone along. Those guys, Jaron Reed with the injury, he had 3/4 the way through the season. The timing of that wasn't the greatest, and Peely never was able to get past like 10 snaps a game, even with Jaron Reed out. Guys have kind of had to quietly play a lot. If you can, and Mike's going to know this better than any of us on this, if it's a matter of keeping them a little bit fresher to be able to remove 10 snaps off their back with him or a little bit more, I can get where he's coming from and doing that at this point in time of the year. You don't want to have it go into a game in the playoffs where your guys are not able to execute because they're wore down and they're tired.
Very true. Very true. But once you get in, I'm hoping you can just let your best players eat. That's what what I would hope.
And if you get that first round bye, this is when we come back to the importance of that first round bye. Because if you do that, then you don't have to think about this stuff as much, right? To your point, you can just rip roar them and let them fly.
Brenty, thank you for the $5. Spoon confirmed for second time what I fear most about 12's noise during defense. Not sure what this refers to.
Well, they're making adjustments and they got to communicate on the defensive side of the ball because this is an intricate scheme that has a lot of pre-snap. Hey, this to this. Hey, over this to this, over that to that. It's going to be a bit of an issue with this particular defense. It wasn't an issue with Coach Carroll's defense, of course, because there wasn't as many of the pre-snap adjustments that you were looking to make. You're going to line up, you're going to play it. So it didn't impact Carroll's defense because of that. This will probably be a bit of an impactful factor to this defense to a degree. You can mitigate it with hand signs. You can mitigate it with more time you get these guys to play with each other, where it can sometimes just be a look that determines what the adjustment needs to be. It's also, I don't think when we come back to this last week's game, that's a little bit where we come back to too, also having the short week factoring in here, where Mike Macdonald pointed to the fact that he probably put too much on the plate of the players for a short week to be able to execute those intricacies in full. And that was maybe a little bit more of what was at stake here as far as the offense exploding for the Rams more than it was the 12 noise. Not to say that the 12 noise wasn't contributing, Brent. I'm not saying that, but just that one weighing over the other, I think, was probably that first. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it's a tough thing to figure out because I don't want to lose the home field advantage, but it's not the Pete Carroll defense. The Pete Carroll defense didn't need to think about this stuff. So it's just one of those things where it's a difficult balancing act to walk, and I don't know what the right answer is.
Could be more simplified game plans at home. Could be a little bit more of, bring out the intricacies just here and there rather than maybe full bore as you might on the road a little bit. So, there's a little bit of some adjustments in here, but there's a little bit of it's just going to be a little bit of, as the noise gets louder and louder here as we get in the playoffs, it's going to be probably a little bit of part that they're going to have to find a way around.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, Brenty, thank you for the $5 yet again. scheme/adjustment before snap needs clear communication, and at 111 decibels, our defensive secondary were giving a very hard time because of the noise. So kind of a follow-up to that. And then we also had this from him a moment later. Thank you, Brenty, for the $2. Playoffs will be much louder. It is an obstacle.
Yeah. I think you're smart to bring it up, Brenda. It's something that the team should think about, especially playing if they're going to play these games at home and not go on the road in the playoffs. And that there's some things you got to do to mitigate that. Simplify the game plan. I think hand signals can work as well. And that you can start to set that up a little bit more of like, I can't hear him. We're going to have to go to hand signals on this a little bit. And you'll see players do that at times in our secondary. So there's some things you can do to get around it, but I'm not going to undersell it. It's with this particular style of defense in this particular stadium, there's going to be a little bit of that at play when the stadium's rocking and rolling at its loudest.
Mm-hmm. But it's something you got to figure out. It's not going to go away. And even in future years, right? Even next year, it's not like well, actually, in recent times, maybe we have seen that there is a way to get Seattle fans to stop cheering so loud, but it's not an advantage that I want to give up.
No, I don't either. And I wouldn't want to go to a simplified defense just because of the home stadium either on that way. So we got to evolve with the times and find our way kind of through it there a little bit.
PGZ, thank you for the 5. Salute, fellas. B-Dog, you made me proud on Roundtable. They didn't read my super chat, so I'm saying it here. I'll bet a lot of super chats got passed over last night. I'm sure there were a lot without even watching the show. I think I know that.
We had, I think we ended up with 120 super chats on the show last night. So I think they did get to a PGZ, but they were just kind of those guys. We got a 2.5 hour show last night. So it was with all those donos, it was like they were trying to, I think, kind of speed a little bit through them to a degree. But thank you, man. I'm glad that it did come off in hopefully the right fashion, what it was, which is not to attack with Jake or Ram fans in particular, but to attack. And, it's, I always say, never attack the person or the fan base, is just attack the argument. And that's all I was looking to do last night, was just, let's go at this argument. Let's unpack this thing in full. Let's see where the audience lands on this when all of the chips are laid out on the table, and let's get the facts, and then let's turn it over from there. And that's always what we're trying to do. Me and Brendan are trying to do this. I'm always trying to do this with my chat, which is just that it's not that we're the smartest of the bunch of anybody else. It's that we all put our heads together to come to, what is the true reality of what we're seeing, rather than what emotionally we might think we're seeing or how it feels. What is it truly? And that's not always an easy place to get to. And that's why you got to turn over all the parts of the evidence and the data and the statistics to get to that spot, I think, in so many ways there. But thank you, PGZ. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the dono last night as well. And I'm glad that it did come off really well. It seems like people really did enjoy it, which is great, because that's what you hope with that if you have that kind of debate.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay. So once again, real quick, before we get to the finale of our show, I want to say shout out to Sleeper one more time. Don't forget to get on over there. Get to some daily fantasy, make your picks, go have some fun with sports this year. Prove that you know what's up with football. Prove what you know what's up with sports. Use our promo codes SBN or NEST. We'll get you 100% off, 100% bonus on a $100 deposit, and get your $20 free bet in there as well. They sponsor both of us this year, so don't forget about them. And let's get a pickup here. So I went with 27-20 Seattle. I think it's just going to be kind of a normal game. Nothing too crazy. I think Carolina can ugly the game up a little bit at home, but I think we will ultimately come out on top because, again, I just cannot pinpoint what this Panthers team does objectively well.
I think it's fair. I can see it going totally that way. I'm going to go a little closer just because I think they play a little different home. It's going to be just a tough game, I think. And the Panthers, but again, that point you brought up too about the Panthers potentially looking a week out on that one and this game not meaning as much. That's kind of making me lean a little bit more into your score prediction than back to mine of 21-19. So that is a factor I hadn't as much considered as coming into this game before this, that they have that game set up and this game really doesn't matter from their perspective on the bottom line.
Okay, so what score are you going to go with? Were you going to? Did you go
21-19? 21-19.
Wow. Okay.
So I'll stay there. I'll still stay with the win, but I will say that yours feels a little bit righter right now because that's what I did as the score prediction last night. So I don't want to move off of it, but
I see
that I certainly if it kind of just depends on how Panthers address this. If they come in there just like we got to get same game, just got to keep going, can't take their then. I think you got 21-19, but if it is that they come in there like McMillan, you said, Ikamanu, play off the game, you said, we'll sit some of these other guys throughout. Well, then, yeah, it's probably even more of a win at that point if that's the direction that they choose to go.
The problem with 21-19 is that probably means Myers didn't kick any field goals, and he's got to kick some field goals if he wants that record. He's got to make 8 in the next 2 games. That's hard.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard.
Yeah. The Rams kind of ruined it by being so bad they couldn't force us to kick field goals. Like that's how they got their revenge. The Rams got their revenge by losing to us by being so bad defensively that they couldn't force us to kick any field goals.
So the part of this game, man, was that our red zone effectiveness, our ability to go get touchdowns versus their inability to get touchdowns and settle for field goals and field goal attempts.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that is our prediction. We both like Seattle to win. We got this from Sean McLeodart $4.99. Thank you. Your boy Jake said he gave the Hawks props, but hasn't stopped tweeting about them or refs or their superiority all day, every day for 6 days. Yeah, I mean, if I were a Rams fan, I'd probably still think that the Rams are the best team in the league. I will admit, but I would also have to acknowledge it sounds a little bit hollow right now because, I mean, they lost to Carolina, they lost to Seattle. Now they split with San Fran with their backup quarterback. Like, I don't know. Like looking at it objectively, I don't know how great that Rams team is at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've got as much possibility of getting in there and getting the Super Bowl because of where they've been at and what they have at the quarterback position and how just good they've been. But to your point, are they at their strongest right now as the season's wrapping up? Maybe not. To Sean's point on this with Jake, yeah, he started out last night talking about how he gave them props, and on his show it starts like, well, you gave props in the first sentence, and then you spent the next 35 minutes getting into the refs. So how much was it really that you gave us props? And how much is it you're really just blaming on the refs in this, win? And like he says, I was seeing this from Ram fans on Twitter. I was seeing it to my comments. I was hearing it from Jake. I was hearing it from him. And that's why I had to push down last night, is that this isn't just something that's coming out from a fan here or there, but your fan base as a collective whole is leaning on this. And it's not correct. It's not accurate. And I'm going to call you guys out on it when I see you guys do that, because you got too good of a team to be leaning on these BS excuses. And quite frankly, the coach, for all the pissing and moaning he did after the game, being McVay, he, a couple of days later, when he had a chance to settle down and think it all through, fired a special teams coach, kind of acknowledging a little bit that, yeah, the special teams was also a part of why we lost this game. Not just in we missed a field goal, not just in the fact that you have a return touchdown on the punt return, but also a factor in this, Brendan, was us kickoffs. I mean, didn't they have twice their kickoff returners fumble the ball in the catch, short returns on those fields? They were kicking into our 35, putting us at the 35-yard line all day long. And that's also the way that this does factor in too, that again, Ram fans are talking not at all about, and they're getting hyper concentrated on this other side. But that was a huge factor in this game, giving us the ball every time at the 35-yard line. I mean, they're just kicking into the back of the end zone. My
understanding is they do that with everybody, but
yeah, because they don't trust their special teams. You don't do that because you don't trust your special teams coverage unit.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was because they were afraid of Shaheed or if they do it to everybody, but people told me they do it to everybody. So, I mean, that's really bad. That is 10 to 15 yards of field position every time, untenable.
It shows up when when the discrepancy between two teams is this much on one side of the three phases of the football. You're going to feel the presence of that. That's not just some small thing of a couple plays here or there, maybe, but no, you'll feel it in a variety of different ways throughout the course of the game.
So, I think we're good. We are good, right?
You're good.
Yeah, you're good. If my interface got unplugged down there, I'm going to be annoyed because I'm making special effort to not kick it. I had to rewire the whole thing yesterday to get it to work, but I think we're good. So, all right, good.
You're good. No.
All right. So I think that's really all there is to say, man. We both think that we're getting win 13, and 13 wins is something this team has done twice in their franchise history. So
it's a special time, man. Yeah, it means something to me too. It's been a pleasure doing this with you, this show this year, and being able to cover this team this way and celebrate this team with all the good stuff they have. And I hope the fellow 12s are doing it. I don't think I have to check with them after that game last week, as everybody's riding high and just loving the way that this season is coming to be. Just keep enjoying it, folks, and hopefully our team can keep rewarding us for that and finish off the home stretch of this season, get that first round bye. And as you say, it's rarely happened, but we've had the first round bye before. We've seen the benefit of that in our back pocket, and boy, would that be big if they could secure it.
Yeah, and I know that there's a school of thought out there that, hey, we're better on the road. We should want to play on the road. No, I want to play at home. And if it ends up costing us a game or something like that, and we end up going home a little earlier than we thought, I'll live with that. I'll live with the variance. Mm-hmm. I'd rather play at home.
I would too. I still maintain that gives you the best chance. This fan base with a playoff game is something just different. So that beast quake happened during a playoff game. Go and get that home field advantage, man. Let's let the chips fall where they may at that point.
Industry Worth, thank you for the $1.99 super chat, by the way.
Thank you, Industry Worth. Appreciate you.
All right. So, we'll do this again next week, probably moving it back to Thursday, although that might be like New Year's Day or something. So we'll see.
Play by ear.
I don't know if we want to do it on exactly New Year's Day, but we'll figure it out. And look, next week, it'll be the final game, but we got one more game to get through here before we get to that one. So Seahawks Panthers, you just watched your team win probably the game of the year for the entire league. So we are on top of the world at this moment. Obviously, things can change very quickly in this league, but right now, you can't really have asked too much more of this squad. I know it was a bumpy ride. I know that you had to fall down 16 points in the fourth quarter. I know that most of us thought the game was over, and they showed you they're not giving up. They are not ever going to give up. They are going to keep fighting, and that's worth an awful lot in a league like this. So I'm going to go and get on out of here. I will see you guys later. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
And don't forget, especially at a time like this, and especially at, I'm sorry, we just got a dono in there. Martin, thank you for the €5. I'm glad the team has a couple extra days to get over the emotions of this win and get on with bringing the number 1 to Seattle. Yeah, the couple extra days are really important right now. I think that we would have been completely flat against Carolina on a normal week.
Agreed. Just one more place that, Martin, this schedule's worked out really well in our favor to help set up this. It's been a part of the contributing factor of us putting the season together. It's, yes, the team getting better, but it's also that we've been able to catch some things in the right timing this year to be able to maximize it.
Mm-hmm. And we also got another super sticker from Industry Worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Industry Worth.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Closing out the stream the right way, but don't forget.
Let's go.
Don't forget Merry Christmas and go Hawks.
Merry Christmas and go Hawks.